Welcome to the January 23rd, 2023 regular business board meeting of the Lower Merion Board of School Directors. The board believes it's in its best interest and the best interest of the students of the district to hear comments from district residents. An opportunity will be given for public comment in person and through the chat feature, which will be read by the district solicitor, Ms. Brooks. This meeting is being video recorded with sound for public broadcast. All participants joining via Zoom will be muted upon entry. And there are some seats up front for people that are standing in the back if you'd like to sit down. There are some. That very first row is available. Before we move forward with the rest of tonight's agenda, there's some business that I would like to move to the beginning of this meeting for a vote. It is item 7A, the appointment of Ms. Megan Schaefer as acting superintendent. Ms. Schaefer has been with the district since 2011 and currently serves as assistant to the superintendent for district administration. She's been an integral piece of the administrative team for the district, and her leadership on several of our important initiatives, such as healthy start times, universal full-day kindergarten, and work in the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion, positions her well to advance the efforts that Dr. Mamine began, while also providing continuity and stability during this time of change. As a board, we do recognize that the additional responsibilities of acting superintendent are numerous, and we are committed to providing additional support to both Ms. Schaefer and the administration as a whole during this interim period. So it is recommended that the Board of School Directors appoints, pursuant to 24 PS 10-1079, Megan Schaefer as acting superintendent, retroactive to January 17th, 2023, and ending upon the appointment of a new superintendent, or unless earlier terminated by resolution of the board. The terms of Ms. Schaefer's employment agreement will remain in effect during this term, with additional remuneration for the position to be determined. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Did you want to? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion passes. Congratulations, Ms. Schaefer, and I'm going to turn over to you for a moment.
Thank you, and hi everyone. Welcome this evening. So glad to see so many of you. My family's in the back, so be nice to me, please. I truly appreciate this opportunity and appreciate all your support this evening. I'm very proud to represent Lower Merion School District because I believe deeply in our long-standing commitment to continuous improvement for the benefit of all students. I am grateful to work alongside an outstanding team of over 1,500 people in realizing this goal. And so for a little bit about me, I've always been an actions speak louder than words type of person. My kids know that. So I'll understand if you don't believe me when I tell you I have put a lot of heart into Lower Merion School District. And for those of you who don't know me, I hope I will have been able to demonstrate that to you by the time I leave this seat. And finally, I want to thank my family for their ongoing support of my work. And so for better, for worse, you now have a mom in this seat. And that is a new take, I think, that we haven't seen here before in Lower Merion. So that's my lens.
Thank you and welcome, and thank you to the Schaefers for allowing us these 6 months with Ms. Schaefer.
And on to probably the more important item of business tonight is to recognize our Board of School Directors. This is Board of January School Director Recognition Month in Pennsylvania, and I mean, the value of these people sitting around this table is truly priceless. They spend so much of their time volunteering to serve all of us, to serve all of you, and importantly, our students in this district. I know that they share a passionate commitment to quality public education and devote their time, as I said, each month to school business, taking the time to understand very complex issues and challenges, as well as opportunities that we face as a district and a community. And I do feel honored to work with each of you and look forward to our work together in the coming months. So thank you so much. And then one final item I'd just like to bring to your attention this evening, as it is a part of our consent agenda. We are recommending the appointment of Mr. Jeff Hunter as principal of Bala-Cynwyd Middle School and Mr. Nick Allen as assistant principal at Bala-Cynwyd Middle School. Both Mr. Hunter and Mr. Allen have been acting as interims this school year, and we are excited to have them board approved tonight so that they can continue the important work long-term. So congratulations to Mr. Hunter, who was not able to join us this evening, and Mr. Allen is here, and if you'd like to share a few words, I apologize for not giving you a heads up on that, but this is my first time here as well, so.
I had a feeling this would happen. First, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. Starting my career outside of this district and then coming here has given me a lot of appreciation for the things that go on here. Starting at Lower Merion High School as a school counselor was more than a dream. I've had several of the school board members' children, and it was a pleasure working with all of them. I got to tell you, it's been phenomenal being here, and just being at Bala-Cynwyd Middle School has been such a nice breath of fresh air and just a new experience and a new challenge. Adding a 5th grade, going to middle school. I just came from the 5th and 6th grade band and orchestra concert along with the junior jazz band, and it was just one of those things where in the day-to-day you don't get to sit down and really appreciate some of the things that happens with the students, and it was such a beautiful moment to see, you know, the families and the community there, and I'm just so excited to be a piece of the continuity. And I do believe as far back that I could go in Bala-Cynwyd Middle School history, there has not been an assistant principal who looks like me. So Ms. Schaefer, I'm excited that we're both kind of hitting that at the same time. So thank you all for this opportunity, and I'm really excited to get to work with all of the Bala-Cynwyd Middle School community, along with the entire district and all the efforts that we're trying to advance. So thank you.
I just want to take a second and say that we were a family. Mr. Allen was my son's counselor at Lower Merion. While I was very, very sad to see him move to Bala-Cynwyd this year, I'm really excited for your opportunity. We had it was a great relationship you have with your students at Lower Merion, and I'm sure that that is extended to Bala-Cynwyd Middle School as well.
And moving on for our agenda this evening, we have a couple of presentations. We're going to start with our full-day kindergarten update. Dr. Alexis McGloin will lead us with that presentation. I'd ask you to just pause.
If you want to pause for a second, we've offered for our students to do their committee reports earlier, sort of at the beginning of the meeting, if you would like, or if you want to stay and hear the presentations, I will leave that up to you, but you are more than welcome to hear your presentations now so that you can get back for. Are you sure?
It's going to be that interesting that you guys are all in. I love it. Thank you so much. So tonight we're going to give an update on full day kindergarten. We initially had talked about coming back to the board in March and giving an update, but we're moving a little bit ahead of schedule just based on some community feedback and where we feel like we are in the process. So just to give you an update, What's happened since September. We've been busy. If you look at the screen, you'll notice that there is a lot of different things that have happened since September. As a district, we've had community conversations on both full-day kindergarten and Healthy Start Time. They happened together. In October, we had 3 different rounds of those conversations. We created a full-day kindergarten committee. It's comprised of parents, community members, guardians, teachers, administrators are all part of this committee. And so we've met monthly since October, including our last meeting, which just happened on Thursday last week. So we are meeting regularly. We also formed some smaller subcommittees because they were necessary really to move our work forward. And so the first one was a subcommittee to create a full-day kindergarten survey. You'll hear a little bit about that as we move through the presentation. And then the second one is at the bottom, which was a facilities subcommittee to do tours of the schools, and we've had 2 different tours that have happened through all of our schools. In addition to that, you recall that the school board contracted with Montgomery County Planning Commission to do an updated enrollment study, and we had that presentation in November. So there has been a lot that's happened so far during this school year. Tonight in particular, we're going to talk about a couple different things. We're going to go through our initial projections for staffing and then MCPC projections, and then what does that mean from a space needs perspective. We're going to talk about those facilities tours that have happened. We're going to give a really brief update on the kindergarten survey. We'll come back with a more deeper analysis in February. Talk about our implications and our learnings. You'll hear our recommendation for you, and then a revised timeline to match that recommendation. So let's start with the updated staffing and classroom projections. When we went out for our community conversations, we initially did an analysis of what we felt like our staffing was going to be. And actually, Mrs. Schaefer and myself both did it, and they matched up fairly nicely when we did it. We looked at what we currently have typically in the first grades as they come in. And so we projected out approximately 22.5 FTEs. That is only classroom teachers, so kindergarten teachers, and then special area teachers. So we're talking about music, physical education, art, and the like. And that would have equated to about 17 classrooms that we see a need for. Spaces, 17 classroom spaces, I should say. And then MCPC did their enrollment study, and their enrollment study is actually a little less, the projection is a little less than what we came up with, and so they projected approximately about 17 FTEs you take out of that, and that would equate to about 13 necessary classroom spaces. So this all went through our committee, and we decided we were going to do some facilities tours to see what we would come up with if we walked around. And so our first group of facility tours happened December 9th. We had parents, guardians with us, some community members with us. We had Jim Lill. I don't know where he is, but he was a really big piece of this and did such a nice job, honestly, filling us in on what was happening in the building. So I have to give him a big shout out and thank you for that. We visited Penwyn, Marion, and Kinwood in our first round. We found that Marion and Penwyn has no available space. Kinwood had 2 open classrooms when we looked. We had a lot of conversations on what do we do with this, because we know we don't exactly have right spacing in all the schools. So could we reconfigure, take down walls? Could we maybe move some classrooms around, look at underutilized spaces? For instance, Marion has a tower, which we can't use, by the way, because but could it be something down the road that we use? That's just a consideration that we had discussion about. The second round happened on the 16th of December, and we went to Belmont Hills, Gladwin, and Penn Valley. There was more space in these schools when we looked. Belmont Hills has 1 unused classroom in the kindergarten wing, and that could be a place that we put other classrooms. Gladwin actually has 6 rooms that we think we'd be able to find. Penn Valley had an empty classroom, but they also have some they have some classes that are large this year, so we're anticipating growth. So it should be taken up with other classes next year. But we might be able to investigate some other spaces within Penn Valley to make it happen. Bathrooms are in some of our kindergarten classrooms and not all of our kindergarten classrooms in the district. Sinks we looked at as well. We looked at kindergarten playgrounds, just to give you an idea of the vast investigation that happened. Overall, in a summary, we know that we have space at Gladwin, Kinwood, and Belmont Hills. Penn Valley, we feel like we could probably redistribute some classes for instructional space. Penwood and Marion really pose a challenge for us as far as classroom space is concerned, which probably isn't going to be surprising to some people, but that is what we found when we were there. So we know that the additional full-day program is going to lead to stress on some building capacities, so we might have to think about partner school scenarios. Do we put kids in clusters in different areas? We have to probably consider, do we want some larger class sizes? Because if we don't have classrooms, we might have to increase class sizes because we can't open up new classrooms. And then also something we've had a lot of conversations about, specials on a cart, which is never ideal, but does art need to go on a cart would be something to consider as well. So just rolling back to that first slide that we had before, which talked about the additional staff and the additional classroom spaces. If you recall, we need anywhere between 13 and 17 classroom spaces. We did not find that many in our first round of review of the buildings. In addition to that, remember we need 17 to 22 projected FTEs just for kindergarten teachers and special areas. Remember, we also do need to think about special education, student services, support services, and so we know that number will increase because this really only does specifically look at a small portion of what we need. In addition to that, we had a second committee that happened, a second subcommittee, and they created a full-day kindergarten survey. That full-day kindergarten survey's purpose was to support understanding of projected enrollment, parent interest, and community support for full-day kindergarten. We had several target populations that we surveyed. So we had preschool parents, pre-K parents, we had school-age parents. We know we have parents that have both students that are in school and will be coming to us still, so they're another group we looked at. And then the community was sectioned off into 2 different groups. To date, we distributed a digital survey to collect input on full-day kindergarten from the community. The survey was open for submission from December 19th through January 6th electronically. We're still collecting some paper surveys that will go into the final analysis. Total of 4,278 survey responses were collected. The survey contained 13 items that included a collection of location of residence, identification as respondent's role as a parent or guardian of school-age children, and it collected both quantitative and qualitative data to support our move towards a full-day kindergarten program. So we have Dr. Christina Paul, who we've hired as a consultant. If you remember, she was in our research department in the district, and so she's going to come back and she's going to do the analysis for us. And she will be hopefully here with the board in February to do an executive summary presentation and a presentation for the school board. So we're anticipating a lot more information to come. But just to give you a really, really big highlight, you can see we had 4,278 responses, which is a very good number for us. I went back to try to see what other kind of response rates we had. For our equity survey, we had about 1,200 people respond from the community. And so this is a good response rate for us. I haven't seen anything over maybe 1,800 from the responses that we've gotten in other avenues that I could find from surveys. So the majority of them had students in school, for sure. But what we thought was really strong for us was about do you support implementing a full-day K program? And 87%, over 87% of the people who responded either agreed or strongly agreed with that. So that we felt like was a really strong supportive voice for full-day kindergarten. In addition to that, about 2/3 of the respondents with future kindergarten students, about 1,500 respondents, indicated they support a full-day kindergarten program, even if it meant that their child would travel to a location other than their home school, which we know is something that we're anticipating is going to have to happen, but there was strong support for that to happen as well. And of the 10% of the respondents who were neutral or against full-day kindergarten, they shared reasons that focused on themes such as concerns about higher taxes, desire to prioritize other items, such as something that we're going to talk about today, healthy start time or field space at Black Rock Middle School, and impressions that full-day is too much for children at this age. But you're going to hear a lot more about it moving forward as well. So our implications so far, you've heard me talk a little bit about this, but just to summarize, from a facilities perspective, we know that we have 3 buildings that we feel can house the program. We have another building that we feel with some modifications we could probably make do. But what that means is that we really need to go back and look at our schools and see what we can move around, modify. Do we need to do any type of construction, minor construction, nothing that's going to need anything significant, but adjustment to our programming that's available. Also cross-building programming, because we anticipate that happening. We have to think about transportation, because if we're moving students to another location, there's transportation associated with that. And also procedures for how are we going to decide where to place students if they're not going to be in their home school. You heard me also say that we're going to require about 13 to 17. Remember, this is estimated. And that we're estimating anywhere between 17 to 22.5 additional classroom teachers. We know that will have a significant budgetary impact, and it may not be feasible over 1 year because there's a limit to how much the district can increase spending in 1 year, and we have other budgetary stressors that we have to consider as well. And so it may take 2 years to make this happen. And then our timeline and our survey really prompted us to move this up to today, because we had a lot of feedback from the community asking us to bring a presentation to the board in January to make a recommendation because of childcare and placement in other kindergarten programs. And so that's why you see the timeline moved up to today. Learnings to date. Space concerns may not quickly be resolved. We feel like we're going to need some cross-building programming. Reconfiguration and construction may be necessary, and so we need to think about that from a timing perspective, budgeting, and a construction perspective. Budgetary impact is still really being understood, so we're thinking it may need a multi-year rollout. We have other priorities, as you're going to hear in just a minute or two. And then we know that anything that's a rush implementation really does impact the quality of program and design. So based on all that, we've met multiple times with the kindergarten committee and talked internally, and based on all of those discussions, including with our kindergarten committee, we feel like a successful implementation will not be possible until the fall 2024. And so you see on the board agenda that we have a resolution asking the board to authorize the district administration to move forward with planning for a 2024-2025 implementation of universal full-day kindergarten. In addition to that, after a lot of discussion with our committee and internally, we really would also recommend that we continue to investigate the feasibility of a softer opening for some kindergarten programming next year, possibly expanding K+, which remember is a targeted program that we have, but it could be expanded. We only have it in 3 buildings, or something like that. We're not ready to say what that looks like currently, but we really want to spend a little time soon investigating and coming back and making a recommendation for that. Finally, timeline considerations. So the electronic survey closed on January 6th, and that survey indicated really that there was support for full-day kindergarten. You heard me talk about moving the timeline up because we had some community pressure for that, and we agree that it's necessary. And then we're looking to do a follow-up presentation on the survey in February. And then finally, we really want to focus on facilities between the spring, February, April, through April, and take a look at, do another walk through our facilities, take a look at them, try to find places that we can actually put classrooms, talk about what we might have to modify to make that happen, and really have a lot of discussion about how we're going to assign students. So that's the spring. We're looking at trying to do all that in the spring. We're hoping to have a final estimation of staffing, which is inclusive of all of our staffing, not just classrooms for kindergarten and specialists. And then we want to focus then on what the program looks like going into the fall, having programmatic discussions, doing some site visits of current full-day programs that we really want to see what's happening and see if we might want to model some of that, with the focus of talking about, okay, what kind of resources and materials do we need? What does it look like from a curricular standpoint? Are there any facilities upgrades that have to happen next school year to be prepared? So that would happen in the fall and going into the following school year. Questions?
Thank you, Dr. McGloin. I'm going to open up to the board with any questions. Ms. Garrison?
Thank you for the report. I was curious, you had mentioned that you received some surveys and people were concerned about the tax implications. Do we have any, numbers on what it would, estimated cost for rolling out the full-day kindergarten? What that means for our budget as well as taxes? Because that would be taxes that people would pay in perpetuity, so.
Yeah, so at this point, we only really looked at our FTEs for the classrooms and for any kind of special area. And we estimated 17 being the highest, 17 to 22.5. It's about 1.7 million to, I believe, and I'm remembering that's off the top of my head, so I might be a little off, but I think it was 2.1 million from that staffing, those numbers alone. Classroom startup costs, we don't know yet. I could tell you K+, our startup cost for K+, it's about $20,000, I think, for 3 classrooms. We figured it was about 20 that we spent for 3 classrooms. Some of the things that we're using currently in kindergarten, we would continue to use. Some of the programs we continue to use, but we'd have to expand and really look at it. So I can't give you an overall number, but I can give you those couple little scenarios that I'm sure of.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Kalish?
So I don't have a question, but I just wanted to acknowledge the momentousness of the idea that this is actually happening. Full-day kindergarten was the first thing I considered when I moved here to Lower Merion years ago. It was the thing that I have asked every elected official before I even ran for anything. It is the reason I decided to run for this board. It is the reason that all of the administrators have started putting answers about full-day kindergarten into their presentations because they know I will ask. It is the reason my fellow board members might sometimes get annoyed with me talking about it in meetings, both public and behind the scenes. This has been my dearest wish, and to see this really, I know it's not as fast as we had hoped, but I am so, when I tell you, my friends, that when I found out this was happening, I sat down in my kitchen and cried on the floor. I was so overjoyed. Like, this is massive for our families. And I know that it has not been a small undertaking, and I know that it will not be an inexpensive undertaking, but it is going to be so impactful for our students and our families and our communities going forward. And I am so happy that we will hopefully make this happen tonight. And just thank you.
Dr. Sotner?
Thanks. I have a couple questions, just some clarity around it. So thinking about the students in the 2 buildings, so Marion and Penn Wynn, the extra classes that you don't have space for, you did say you would possibly increase the kindergarten classes that are already there. That's a possibility. But would you move those students to different schools, or would all the students, sorry, I'm not articulating that well. Would all the kindergarten students go to different schools, or would just the ones in the high capacity, and that's not the right word for it, but the space restricting schools go to it?
Right, and I understand what you're saying. So would we maybe shuffle everybody, or would we just move certain students? We don't have an answer to that. I think we really have to figure out exactly where we have classrooms and then have a lot of conversation on what's the best approach that everybody feels like would make sense for the district. So I don't have an answer on that, and it's obviously a really big question for us to answer, right? Which is part of why we need some more time to figure it out. So right now, I think it could be a variety of ways that we attack it, and we have to really decide what's in the best interest of all of our students moving forward. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Are we thinking of bringing on, hiring is difficult. Are we thinking of bringing on the kindergarten teachers? Because if 17's a lot, that's a lot of people to hire. So we would bring them on sooner, and they would have more time within the school district to do other things, or support the build or the K++ kind of realm.
So I would say that we're going to recommend looking at what can our budget sustain this year. And then whatever we feel like we can garner, we would want to hire this year and then hire the remainder of the staff next year. That would be our recommendation, to look at the budget and see what we're capable of having happen from a hiring perspective this school year.
Great, thanks, that's it.
Mr. Lee?
Thank you. Regarding the budget, you list staffing, materials, resources, and facilities upgrades as part of the budget projections, but we're anticipating other costs too as well, right? Like transportation cost increases, and so you're not listing those. Is that any particular reason why those factors aren't listed?
No, there's not transportation, there's not any particular reason why. We're just giving examples of things that we knew.
Okay, so
we were
that's
going
not
to
an
have to think about.
inclusive list. That's
It's not.
just,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Shurak?
Thanks so much, and thanks for, to the committee, and for all those for the advocacy and work. Appreciate that input. I have a few questions. One is starting on slide 5. I wondered if you could expand on what does it mean, consider using full-day implementation as opportunity to reset a guiding template that can be adapted to changing cohort and section counts? I think it's under facility tour update.
So interestingly enough, one of the members of our subcommittee, he does facility use. And so one of his suggestions was almost taking it from a blank template, right? And not making any assumptions on where things should be, and then build it back up from there. So it's from one of our subcommittee members who does this as part of what he does for a living. So it's great having him on that committee because he has a whole different lens for us than we typically have.
Got it. I can keep going? Okay, okay. Wondering if the committee has considered a multi-year plan for facilities for implementation, meaning like, oh, for next fall, we might need to do some of this moving around and different innovations. Longer term, this is our goal to have access in every building.
We have not had a conversation with the committee about longer-term access in each of the buildings, because that's a board conversation as well. And so I shouldn't say we haven't had conversations. We've had conversations about what potentially could be solutions, including like, do you have a kindergarten center? We've had modulars before, do modulars go back in? So we've had a lot of those conversations, but a lot of that is contingent on what the board is willing to do as well. And so while we've had multiple conversations on how to attack the problem, we haven't looked at it from a perspective of recommending a 3 or 5 year plan.
Gotcha. Wondering on when you reference the expansion of the K3, or the K plus program or something similar for next year, wondering if you would be able to provide a more specific timeline so those parents that would be impacted could have line of sight into if they would be eligible, and if not at this time, when you would be able to come back with that timeline.
Yeah, so I think some of that is dependent on the budget and what we're able to sustain. So hopefully we'll have our staffing numbers fairly soon, and based on those staffing numbers, then we'll be able to come back to the board and say this is what we think we're able to do. So it really is contingent on what we can handle from a staffing perspective budgetarily. We know we're able to expand if we need to into 3 other areas. Dr. Gaudioso and I have already budgeted for, it's in our budget to expand classrooms in case we're able to do that. We've already put that into our budget from a resource perspective.
Okay, I very much appreciate that, and I wonder if it would be possible, even while waiting for that final budget sign-off, to get more succinct in what the criteria would be for participation, so families could understand, are they even eligible, or should they keep their hopes up that they could participate if budget were to be approved?
We can do that now. We have criteria that we use. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm happy to do that.
I wasn't sure, because you said expansion of K plus or something similar, so I wasn't sure if there was different criteria being considered for the something similar
Right.
that would be introduced.
So for K plus, it would be the same. If we're able to go beyond that, then I think then we'd have to talk about, do we change our numbers, like, our cutoff points? So we'd have to be able to do that. I do think we'll be able to know that before final budget is approved, what we're able to accomplish, though. So
And for
hopefully
the-
April.
Okay, yeah, for the benefit of the community, when is the final budget?
The final budget's in May, but hopefully in April.
Okay.
May, June? June.
June.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Thanks, Vic.
Thanks, Vic. Much
Okay.
appreciated.
Tonight.
Let's not give Vic a heart attack.
Okay, and then finally, I'm very interested in how we are approaching the professional development and the instructional program for our sitting kindergarten teachers who may not be in K+ or may be in K+, and the differences in how we will support teachers in implementing the model. Would love to hear and learn more information about that and connected to our equity conversation from our last board meeting, understanding where we are in third grade and the opportunity gap of where we are landing. Very much interested in understanding how the science of reading is being implemented into our practice as it is standard best practice right now. And so, not to be answered now, maybe a future presentation, but would love to go deep on what that looks like in supporting our team and our students.
Yeah, and we can absolutely do that at a CCOB meeting and then bring it to the board after that.
Great.
Mr. Moore?
Yeah, no, I'll be quick because I'm just kind of piggybacking on something Ms. Shurak noted, and that was whether or not there's some consideration for either rethinking the modulars or looking for a kindergarten center, given that the two schools that are spatially challenged are also geographically close. So whether there's consideration for, either purchasing or leasing additional space in this area, again, more of a long-term plan, or bringing back modulars temporarily and as we plan for and look for that opportunity.
Mr. Lill, we've talked about how long it takes for the modulars to actually go back in, and it's not as quick as one would believe, right? And so that's why we didn't really investigate for 1 year out. Maybe down the road, though, it might be something for us to investigate for sure. Yeah.
Ms. Schaffmeister?
I am kind of piggybacking on Ms. Shurak's as well. Popular. And I just was wondering, we talk about the K+ program all the time, quite often, and I'm wondering, can you give a little bit of more of an overview of where it's located, how the facilities are situated in the district, and how that, a little bit more concrete examples of how that could work in and help benefit the full-day program as we move forward?
It is a targeted program. That's not to say that some components of it we don't really like for all of our students, like play-based learning is a piece of our full-day kindergarten program, which all of our students would benefit from. So that's something that I see being able to be utilized when you're thinking about all students universally versus a targeted program. It's located currently in Belmont Hills, am I getting that right? Belmont Hills, Penn Valley, and Penn Win. Belmont Hills, Penn Valley, and Penn Win. And it was decided based on our enrollment numbers, our free and reduced lunch population, and they are our title schools. And so that's where we located it, targeted for students. Small class sizes, about 12 students in the class maximum that we have in those classrooms right now. Like I said, there's play-based learning that's part of that program. They get specials, so they get music and art and the like during the school day as well, which will be something also that does expand to, we are anticipating expanding to all of our kindergarten classrooms when we go down that avenue.
Thanks. And do you know approximately what the percentages of students that are kindergarten students that are in the program out of the full?
Well, it depends on the school because the size of the school obviously matters, but each of them has approximately 12 students. So from a percentage perspective, Belmont Hills is our smallest school, right? And so the percentage is higher of students that are participating in a full day program there than it would be at like a Penn Win, which is our largest school.
Okay, that makes sense. And remind me again, it's 20 is our class size for kindergarten max currently, is that correct?
21?
21, okay, thank you.
Although I think we might have a 22, do we have a 22 now?
Okay.
It's 21, but the guideline's 20, then we do the +1 if we need to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. McGuane. I'm going to give the opportunity to any students that want to do public comment. We've started offering public comment prior to presentations. We do still have the sleep presentation, so I don't know if there are students that want to wait until after that. I leave that up to you, but I wanted to offer up to students for public comment now.
Start with them and then go.
Yep, so if you got, so we have two student representatives on our board, one from Lower Marion High School and one from Harriton High School. Ms. Wu, if you're ready, if you want to do your committee report.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's having a nice January. So earlier this month, our Lower Merion Build On group has started their annual virtual homework help program. And this applies to all K through 4 students, and they're invited to use this great resource for elementary school students in need of academic assistance. Last week, Student Council volunteered with the district in celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. King for MLK Day, with an afternoon of fun-filled hands-on service projects benefiting a number of community service organizations. Later that week, our Asian Culture Club hosted a Lunar New Year celebration. Along with their club party, we also held our annual Red Envelope fundraiser in support of Asian Americans United, which is an organization dedicated to community service in Philadelphia. Along with that, our STEM organizations have also been pretty active. This past weekend, our Science Olympiad team competed in a tournament at MIT. They placed 15th overall and medaled second in both detector building and trajectory. Our TSA chapter is excited to compete in their first in-person regionals conference since COVID, since last year's got canceled due to the snow. And this Saturday, TSA will compete in over 40 events in hopes of qualifying for states. Our student athletes have also been busy. Senior Dylan Peterson has been named PA Prep's Lives Athlete of the Week for his performance in ice hockey. And our basketball team has also had a great season, and this coming Thursday, January 26th, will be a big game. Student Council, in collaboration with one of our teachers, Mr. Grugan, is hosting Hope's Classic, which is a fundraiser for the Angelman syndrome. Hope Grugan, which is Mr. Grugan's daughter, has Angelman syndrome, and this event is an incredible opportunity to raise money for research and bring the community together, as well as show some spirit for our basketball team. On Thursday, the event will begin with the girls' basketball team playing Haverford at 6 p.m., and the boys' basketball team will play Haverford at 7:30 p.m. The entire school will be invited to participate in a Spirit Day on Thursday, which is a pink out at Hope's request, and the game Thursday night will be a pink out as well. On another note, Players has been working diligently for their upcoming show. Little Women will be held on February 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And another fun-filled production, Lower Merion's 13th Amazing Ace event, Lost in Space, will feature 10 of LM's upperclassmen. The event is scheduled for this Friday, January 27th at 7 p.m. in the Lower Merion High School auditorium. Each contestant is supporting a worthy cause, and besides the contestants' charities, the Amazing Ace is also fundraising for the Sean Hughes Children's Trust in memorial of Mr. Hughes, who is the true Amazing Ace. Student leaders of the Environmental Club and SAGE have asked me to reiterate their messages. They'd like to meet with the school board, and they'd like for you to include them in their decision-making processes going forward. And today was our last day before our mid-year experiences. Students are hard at work studying for their midterms, and tomorrow will be the first day of our midterm experience week. Students might not be excited for their midterms, but they're excited for the shorter schedule. So, anyways, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wu. Ms. Simmons?
Good evening, everyone. As Harriton enters the new year, there are many noteworthy events. Harriton has earned the College Board's AP Computer Science Female Diversity Award for expanding young women's access to AP Computer Science principles. This award acknowledges our school's work towards equal gender representation during the last school year. Harriton's Felicity McFlynn has been named Mainline Girls Athlete of the Week after averaging 16 points, 6 rebounds, and nearly 1.5 steals per game. Several fundraisers have taken place to help the charity selected for Dr. Harriton, which will take place February 24th. Harriton this month also hosted 3 8th grade visits, and this was the first year that we had 3 with the addition of Black Rock Middle School. Freshman mentors led tours and answered all the questions 8th graders had to assist with the high school transition process, as well as helping some students decide on which high school to attend. Last Monday, several Harriton students participated in Martin Luther King Jr.'s Afternoon of Service at Lower Merion High School. The Harriton Theater Company last week held sold-out performances of their winter one acts and is now preparing for their spring musical, She Loves Me. The Harriton High School music department is hosting an in-person open house this Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. The mid-year experience, most commonly heard around the halls as midterms, starts tomorrow with a modified schedule of 2 classes per day for the rest of the week. And after the initially planned Winter Wellness Day was canceled due to school closing, it has been rescheduled to February 16th and will have a new component, Heriton Unplugged. On this half day, Heriton students and staff are asked to unplug for the day by powering off their cell phones and not using technology for the day to draw attention to cell phone and technology addiction. Simultaneously, this will encourage human interactions in all of our classes during Wellness Day. Once again, student leaders from both schools are advocating in favor of preserving Oakwell, and I have been asked to speak about it. I hope that the school board will listen to them and their arguments and include their voices in an issue that could impact all of us for years to come. As always, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much to both of you. We appreciate your participation and input in our meetings. You're welcome to stay and welcome to leave if you need to go study for your midterms. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to comment on two things I heard Ms. Simmons say in particular. I really appreciate you using your role as school board representative to elevate issues that were brought to your attention. Specifically, you named other students had brought Oakwell to your attention as something that you hope the board voted a certain way. So just wanted to commend you. And also note that there was a few concerns that were shared around the timing of the experiences week, what is the name? Mid-year experience week, and I was really happy to hear from the principals through Dr. McGloin that 82% of high school students had voted to have the schedule the same as last year, so just wanted to give voice to that given some folks had reached out. Thanks.
Okay, I think I only have 4 students. So we have Noah, Julia, Willa, and Sam. Do I have any other students that signed up? All right, so Noah, you can come on up. Did you sign up?
Yeah, my name's Dylan.
Okay. Great, you'll be right after Sam. Thanks for stepping up. Noah, do you want to come up? Okay.
Should I start? Okay. Hi, it's good to be back. I'm becoming quite familiar with this room. And I hope you guys didn't miss me too much. As the student advocacy for the Oakwell movement.
Sorry, before you start, if you could just say your name and where you're a student. Thanks.
My name is Noah Four. I'm a senior at Lower Merion High School. As the student advocacy for the Oakwell movement began 4 months ago, I came up in front of you all and asked you to rethink your plans for Oakwell. A month later, I returned with a record-breaking number of students as we gave you our proposal, named the Acorns Proposal, and we asked you to give us a brighter future. That brings us to today, 2 months later, where we have returned to give you our modified list of requests. But firstly, I would like to reiterate, because there's a lot of new faces today, which is lovely to see. My name is Noah Four. I'm a senior at Lower Merion High School, and it's time to act. I would like to welcome Megan Schaefer and congratulate you on your acting platform as superintendent. I look forward to hopefully working with you shortly. I would also like to welcome and congratulate Dr. Ramin as being appointed as the new Secretary of Education for Pennsylvania. I'm sure he will make a wonderful impact doing what he is now able to do, which is amazing. Now, I would like you guys to look at the cute little friend that has returned to your desks, the green folder. I don't want you guys to be alarmed. It is only a page this time. But I ask you again to think about the students, to think about what we want and what we need. Think about meeting with us and creating a student advocacy board. Think about sending out a community-wide survey, evaluating what the community wants Oakwell to be used for, as you did for Full Day K, which I got a lot of info from, so thank you. I would like to ask you to think about giving us access to relevant details regarding Oakwell. Think about creating a criteria that protects the ecosystems living in Oakwell Forest, since it is extremely biodiverse and is home to many species that are unfortunately diminishing. And think about reconsidering the placement of these auxiliary fields. As I heard you say earlier, Megan, actions speak louder than words, which is a statement I quote daily and strongly agree with. The student representatives of the Oakwell movement have put in much more than just words. We have put in so much action, from creating proposals to standing up here in front of you speaking instead of studying for midterms. And not to out you, Sam, but some of us have not left the school building since 7 a.m. this morning, and I strongly commend you for that. And for that, I would like to ask you guys to not only hear us, but truly listen to us. Listen to what we're asking and decide to let Oakwell grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah.
Julia Dubnoff?
May I begin? Hi, my name is Julia Dubnoff. I'm a senior at Lower Merion High School, and it's time to act. I was last able to speak to you all in November, but I've been working closely with fellow Lower Merion students Noah, Sam, and Willa, as well as all members of the Environmental Club and SAGE, Student Activists for Greater Equality, and the time since to continue to advocate for the preservation of the Oakwell property. I've paid close attention to the motions of the school board, to the words of former Superintendent Dr. Khalid Mumeen that he said to us 2 Wednesdays ago when he so wonderfully agreed to meet with us, and to the information provided to the public. But by information provided to the public, I mean the extremely limited statements that we've received. The last time I spoke, I urged the school board to explore every other option for athletic space for students. I will remind you that my perspective on this is framed by my years on the varsity girls ice hockey team and by my time captaining my teammates. Time and time again, when we discuss finding alternate auxiliary fields rather than constructing them at Oakwell, the standard response from the district is to say that they have explored every other possibility already. While I don't doubt that Lmsb has done some degree of research relating to alternate options, that you've put in hours and hours into doing this, my team wants the facts. We urge the school board to either make public or at least share with the student leaders of the Oakwell movement a comprehensive list of all other fields that Lmsb has supposedly explored, as well as the explanation for why it doesn't work. With a limited amount of transparency relating to Oakwell so far, that has been improving but still is not where we would like it to be, we unfortunately have little ground to blindly trust the statements that we've been given. As any AP Lang teacher will tell you, no claim can be made without evidence. The district has made a claim that Oakwell is necessary due to no other options existing. It's time for you to show us the evidence. If there truly is no other option, the district will want to demonstrate this clearly so that we back down. Because as I mentioned last I spoke, there are plenty of spaces that we have found and we have pushed for. And since the last time I spoke, we have only discovered more possible locations for field space. As my peers will say and have said before, we simply want to work with you. The information we have found on field spaces is always available. It's always yours for the taking. Simply come meet with us, providing the evidence of why the spaces that you have looked for do not work, and we will provide you our ideas. It's as simple as that. Distinguished members of the school board, I urge you to work with us and work with the students you've pledged to serve. Provide us the complete story so that we can trust that you would not endeavor in the destruction of Oakwell if there were other options. Because until you prove otherwise, we have no choice but to stand in your way. Thank you. I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Julia.
Willa Godfrey?
Hello everybody, I am Willa Godfrey and I'm a junior at Lower Merion, and it's time to act. So far, we've been coming to these meetings for about 3 months. You see our faces pretty much only on these Mondays. That in itself is the issue, as it's easy to forget that student leaders and I have been pouring our hearts into this issue. We've been putting ourselves and our cause out with a simple request to collaborate. Last meeting, I spoke of the importance of communication as well as transparency, so that a solution can actually be found. The only meeting we had is with Dr. McGloin and Dr. Mumeen, which is wonderful, and it was great to be able to collaborate with them, discuss with them, and that is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're wanting for collaboration. We've been wanting to meet with all of you, whether it's individually or in a group setting. We feel like it's imperative for all of us to sit down. Wait, finding my thing. You all overwhelmingly agree that student voices are very important. I've emphasized this point, and I'm sure you guys all know this, but you make decisions for us, and we need to be involved in this loop. We need to stay, involved in decisions. This is the time to live up to your role as a school board member and act in the best interest of the students. There's also a hesitance to include student voices in certain meetings, as with the reasoning it isn't the proper time and place for us to share our opinions. But what is the proper time and place? We want a platform, which is what I'm going to let Sam talk about in a minute, but student voices can't be selectively picked for when you want them to be heard. They need to always be a factor. I'm speaking on behalf of students in the Lower Merion School District for years to come. The destruction of Oakwell will impact students for generations. We're imploring you to commit to preventing the removal of any heritage trees over 30 inches in diameter, and to immediate stewardship of trees on the property. We need a voice, we are the future, and we need you to join us and let Oakwell grow. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Sam Dungy.
May I begin? Hi, my name is Sam Thanagi. I'm a sophomore at LM High School, and it's time to act. Good evening, respected board members. It's great to see you again. I've been here for the last 4 months asking to preserve Oakwell Forest, and tonight you heard from my fellow dedicated student activists about our hopes and plans for Oakwell going forward. We've spent the last 4 months showing up again and again asking to be listened to, and I hope we've shown our dedication and commitment to student advocacy. But student activists shouldn't have to just shout at you at board meetings to be listened to, so we want to suggest an alternative. Oakwell wouldn't have been this whole debate if students had been incorporated and listened to from the very beginning. As you teach in your history curriculum, the core idea of our democracy is that the power of the government comes from the consent of the governed. Your students are your constituents, and these decisions impact our lives day in and day out. And we want a vote and a voice. Engaged, active students deserve active roles in board decisions. We're incredibly grateful for our school board representatives from our high schools, but we want wider representation, and representation with an actual say in discussion and decision-making. Our student representatives have come to these meetings to give updates, but don't really get to share their opinions in the form that we wish they would have. The school board is dedicated to the well-being of students and to meeting our needs. Students know what we need. Student activists for healthy school start times and environmental sustainability are community leaders, just like adults are. In a school district dedicated to diversity and inclusion, students' experiences of bigotry fall consistently on deaf ears. The voices of students are the most important and most overlooked voices in every school board decision. These are decisions made on our behalf that control our day-to-day life, and we propose the creation of a school board student advocacy committee, which we'd work with you to help implement, to give student leadership representatives an active role in board policy. Explain to me, why can't students have a vote in school board policy? Why do the people you represent not get a vote in their lives? We've stood before you month after month asking to be listened to you, but we shouldn't have to fight this hard. If you're doing this for our well-being, and I know that you are, I know you're all working incredibly hard at your jobs, why don't you give your students more than just a seat at the table, a voice at the table? In 2021, at the candidate forum for board elections, every single candidate said they would support student representation on the school board, and I expect that to still hold true. Ms. Schaefer, I have no idea if you remember this, but I've worked with you before on a proposal to increase civic engagement in schools, and I hope that you see how this aligns with that. This is civic engagement in the school district. And if we've moved you at all with our work for the last few months, or if you respect and really care about student advocacy, I hope that you can join us in the creation of a school board advisory committee. And we look forward to talking to all of you moving forward, to protecting Oakwell Forest together, and to having our voices heard. Join us and let Oakwell grow. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you very much.
Adam Fox, and then we have Dylan Spivak.
Good evening, members of the school board. I would like to thank you for all coming today and to help support the new proposal for healthy start times. This is a critical step in the fight for healthy start times, and I know that you all have worked very hard on this. I would like to pledge my support, and I'm sure many other members of the community and students have and will as well. And I would also like to state that we should not wait for this change to be made to align with lights in Arnold Field or full-day kindergarten. This can take effect next school year, and I'm hopeful that the board will work together with members of the community and other administrators to help secure this change for next school year. Thank you all again for working on this proposal, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Dylan Spivak.
Hi everyone, my name is Dylan Spivak and I am a junior here at LM. I'm here to talk about the proposal for healthy school start times. First off, I want to thank you all so much for the proposal. We will hopefully be able to join so many other schools that have taken this step. I am ecstatic about this. The community has been researching this issue since 2014, and it's amazing to finally get a proposal. But I also want to acknowledge that there are many people opposing this proposal, and I would like to address it. First off, the elementary school parents are upset about this issue because of many logistics involving their children. But this is not a babysitting issue, and this is not a convenience issue. This is a mental and physical health crisis our teens are facing. Poor mental and physical health due to lack of sleep is also linked to depression and various diseases which are detrimental to our teens. Secondly, the athletes. The later start times will help the athletes because it is proven that sleep improves athletic ability and decreases lack of injury. And additionally, the whole student body does not participate in school sports, but the whole student body does need later start times. Healthy start times would benefit 100% of the student population. An argument that many make against later start times is that students will just go to bed later, but studies have proven this is not the case. When school start times are moved later, students do get more sleep and do better in school. Overall, there are many logistics that we can figure out at a later time, including athletes' practice times and after-school activity. But something we don't have any wiggle room on is immediately implementing healthy school start times. The damage has been done. We have no time to wait any longer. It is grossly negligent to not put this into effect immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
That's it for our students.
Thank you to the students. Again, there are some seats in the front if anyone wants to sit. It's a long meeting. I can see everyone standing up there.
Just real quick, it's fantastic to have the students speak to us first. We appreciate the adults being cool with that too, but we really appreciate the feedback. There's some questions we have for the proposal, so we'll take up the green folder proposal as well. And the only thing I wanted to throw out there is Washington DC is looking at 16 to vote, and that includes voting for school board members. So you can keep going with that and see different ways that you can get involved. There's a couple other states, North Carolina is doing it as well, just heads up.
Great, thank you, Dr. Sotner. So now we'll move on to the Healthy Start Times presentation. Ms. Schaefer is going to lead that.
Call myself to the podium.
Yeah.
Oh, we're leaving. You left, my family left, I'm getting started, so, all right, well, this evening I'm here to present where we are with Healthy Start Times. I know this is an important issue for our board and for our school community, so the presentation has three parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about the background, where we've come. There's a lot more detail on our website for a deep dive into the exploration of Healthy Start Times in Lower Merion School District. We're also going to get into the proposed schedule and then our next steps. So that's basically what we're going to cover this evening. Again, we have, want to start with the why. Why did we choose to explore changing school start times? And our students have led the conversation, so they were just a great segue for me to jump in here and talk about the importance and the science behind sleep, and especially as the lack of sleep and how it impacts our adolescents. And so that's really the why that we began this journey. And I'm going to show you some timelines later, and the work really began long before the district sort of jumped all in on board with it. So I want to acknowledge that the voices in the community led us in this direction, and it's important to continue recognizing that voice and guiding our work moving forward. I would also, I think it's important to frame this subject around overall student wellness, knowing that sleep is just one aspect of what it means to be, well and healthy. So we can address this, but we also want to continue the work that we're doing around how do we make this a more holistic approach to student wellness. And so, where there may be gaps or challenges with a full implementation because it doesn't strike the ideal, there are still things that we should do as a school community to promote good sleep hygiene moving forward. So a good place to start is what are our current schedules. If you're new to this conversation, I think it's helpful to take a look at our current schedules and note a few things. One is that we operate on 3 tiers. And that's important because our transportation system needs to run this way. We cannot do this on 2 tiers or certainly not 1 tiers because the magnitude of the number of buses and drivers and parking that would be necessary to run this on more than or less than 3 tiers. So you see that's one constraint in our schedule. The other variables that we can play around with when we talk about how do we change start time is the start time and the end time, of course, and then the total time of the day. So we have those variables as we think about how do we construct a schedule that is more in line with our why. So these are, as I've acknowledged, this has been a longer journey, but I wanted to highlight a few key events as it relates to this work, and also the overlay of sort of what took us our sort of attention away from moving forward with this work and why. Not because we didn't think it was important, because other variables such as the transition to dealing with COVID, as well as our entire K-8 transition and opening a brand new school. So going from a total of 8 schools to a total of 9 K-8 schools, that's kind of a big thing to accomplish while we're dealing with COVID and then trying to do all the day-to-day work. So I think that's an important factor, and still things that we're wrestling with, that implementation and that coming out of COVID. So sort of that's where my point of just, I ask for your indulgence and patience while we don't let perfection get in the way of good as we move forward with this. So historically, there are 2 key committees that we talk about, and it's aligned to the work that you're going to see in a minute. We had a research and development committee that was formed under our strategic plan. And the purpose of that committee was not just about sleep time, but having a committee that's earmarked to do research that helps inform best practices. So that particular body did a lot of work in examining what are the options that are out there. So if you can imagine like all of the different ways that you could realign and order schedules, there are some models that have been used nationally. So the research and development team went about looking at what are the options and gathered those options, described them, and then handed them off to the Sleep Health and School Schedules Advisory Committee. This committee had a really difficult task. They were charged with saying, what is that one schedule that is going to be recommended for consideration and full implementation by the board. So they had to determine what those criteria would be to make a decision like that, and then go through a process that was facilitated by Trigo Ed, which was an outside consultant to help sort of come up with a final recommendation. And that recommendation you see here, it was referred to as the modified reorder, and that was presented in October of 2019. Some community response to that particular schedule is highlighted here. There's more information on our website. There's a link there to the Hanover research study that analyzed the feedback that we got relative to that proposal. We acknowledge that there's positives and negatives around that proposal. You see there's the positive of getting that sleep time, but there are some trade-offs and challenges associated with implementing that schedule that were shared with us at that time. Of course, unfortunately, that's when we ran right into COVID. So that as we were getting that feedback, COVID happened, we shut down, we pivoted. And that said, I think it's important to note that the board, still had their eye on this important work and took action in October of 2020 to say, we sort of affirm that we need to make this move. And so when we do make this move, that we want the high schools in the second tier. And you can see that there's other conditions that were associated with that. But I think it's important from an administrative perspective, from a staffing perspective, and hopefully from a community perspective, that we knew that the question was not if at that point, it was how and when. So that was back in October of 2020. And since that time, again, with the COVID and the K-8 transition overlay, we've continued to do our work with sort of those other things happening at the same time. So we began with re-engaging the community on what those options look like back in June of 2022 when I was here presenting to the board about where we were on this topic. Following that, in the fall of 2022, we also opened up or had hosted several engagement sessions with the community in different locations to share sort of where we were with start time, but also where we were with full day kindergarten. So that was an opportunity to develop some Q&As. Those are also on our website. There's a video there that you can also take a look at, a recording of those sessions. So I invite you to do that as well. And then finally, during this time, our core logistics team and the Sleep, Health, and School Start Time Advisory Committee, I think I messed that up, I apologize, even to this day, I still get that acronym wrong. We met to talk about, okay, what are the challenges associated with this what we're calling the proposal today that you're going to see in a minute, so that we could begin to plan for mitigating those challenges. And I'll say, even before I turn this over, we know, unfortunately, there's no perfect solution to this. We know that there are trade-offs. We know that people feel like there's something to be gained and something to be lost in this work. And that's why it's important to us, and I'm going to talk about where we're headed after this, is that we need to hear your voices about how the district can be best positioned to mitigate those challenges, so that it's not the if, it's the when, and how we do it successfully and sustainably. So this today is the proposal that has emerged from taking in all of the input we've received, trying to maximize that sleep time, that why, and also doing it within the constraints of the schedules that we have. This is what has been called the secondary swap. We've talked about it in publicly for some time now, but this is the schedule that you'll see in the agenda tonight as the recommendation to move forward so that we can get the engagement from the community around this particular schedule. I'm going to come back to it in a second, but I wanted to also show, these are the schedules I've shown you this evening, starting with the current schedule. The proposed schedule is the secondary swap, and then the 2019 schedule is the grade out schedule at the bottom. So this is a reference for you in the future if you go back to this, but we wanted to put them all on the same slide so you can compare when you go back to review this, if you do. So back to the secondary swap. This is what we're talking about in terms of future implementation, looking as soon as possible to implement this, again, successfully and sustainably. So for me, I'm thinking about like all the questions that we want to ask, are these things, is it worth doing? I think that checks the why. The secondary swap gives us that. Yes, it does meet some of the objectives. Is it achievable? Yes. And I've gotten away from using the word feasible, because feasible makes it sound like it's easy. It's actually embedded in the definition. I looked it up. So now I just use achievable because it's about doing it successfully. And then, are there compromises? There are. There are going to be compromises, and we want to talk through what those might look like. And then I didn't check this box because I don't think it's going to be easy to do, but for all those other reasons, I think it's the direction we need to move forward with. So Again, these are some of the challenges and mitigation opportunities that we've already identified with the work that we've done in our committees. We know this is not all-inclusive, but we also know, just to be transparent about what those trade-offs are, we know that with the elementary school and this particular schedule, there may be more child care hardships in the morning initially in implementing a schedule. Are there things as a district that we can do to help mitigate that? Finding drivers to staff later runs, that's a concern. If, as we back up those elementary start times later in the day, that means those late runs get started later and later in the evening. And so we just have to keep our mind, our eyes open to what those trade-offs might be in doing this, not because we don't do it, but because we want to try to do our best to keep everything we do and then do more. And so that's sort of our way here. And that's why I love this place, right? We want to do it at the best level we can and then some. So that's the challenge ahead of us. And but I also want to know, want us to be aware that there can be things that we have to let go of in moving this forward. So again, the theme of success and sustainability, what does that look like? We're meeting the objective of having our adolescents get that maximized sleep time, that we have opportunities to hear feedback so we can try to inform our efforts to meet the needs of students, families, and staff. And that's what I think I need to pause there for a second, because it's our community, it's our students, and it's our staff who are part of our community that we need to make sure is on board with and help us make this change work for the benefit of our students. We, obviously want to maintain as many of the opportunities for students as possible in doing this move, so that's an objective for us. Again, I think when we talk about what does success look like, it does those things. And then we, again, allow for some time so that people can make the adjustments that they need out of the things that we can control. So there are certain things we can control, and there are things that we can't control. Community events, community clubs, religious schools, before and after care arrangements, we know that those are all factors that play into how do we do this in a way that's successful and sustainable. And finally, allow for the fact that we might need to make adjustments once implemented, because it's, based on a lived experience, it may feel a little bit different that we need to settle into. So I always say, like, a work in progress, and we'll keep moving forward and learn from our next step. So what are our next steps? That was a great segue. To end this, the recommendation on the agenda this evening is available to you, and you can also see that it's basically outlining our work moving forward based on that proposal, giving us the authorization to move forward with the important engagement pieces so we know how to mitigate the challenges that are ahead of us. And I know we're going to come back to this in a minute, but I wanted to touch on those engagement efforts. We're going to utilize different methods of getting that engagement, from in-person focus groups to surveys, and what will be immediately available, because we know that some people are going to want to share their thoughts immediately, is our sleep@lmsd.org account is open and available for feedback. What we would ask and what we hope that you can help us with is tell us about how this change will impact you, how we can make this work for you and your family, and anything else you would like to share. So while that is an open email box, I would really ask that you kind of frame your information or your feedback to us around these questions, because this is going to help guide our work in a more focused way. So again, these are the opportunities. We're going to be messaging this out in a lot of different ways, not just tonight, so stay tuned. This will get out to you in a variety of ways. And in the meantime, this presentation will be immediately available to you on Board Docs, or is immediately available. Our district website has more information if you want to take a deeper dive into how did we get here. And then again, the comments that you might immediately want to share with us, that's available to you through the sleep@lmsd.org email account. And so with that, I'd like to ask if there are any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. I'm going to open up to questions. I just wanted to take a moment in advance and say thank you for providing the history. I know that there are many families that have been involved in this work for a very long time, but I also want to acknowledge that there are many families that are new to the district. A lot of especially elementary families that are elementary families now may have only had kindergartners or first graders in 2019. So they're sort of new to the process. And so providing that context in the background, I think, was really important. So I wanted to thank you for doing that. And I'm going to open it up to the board for questions. Really?
This is a very chatty group on this on this subject, and I'm astounded that nobody else wanted to jump in there. I have a few questions because I have more than a few feelings about this topic. So the whole point of changing start times is so that adolescents get more sleep, yes? Do we have a definition for what we would call adolescent? What is the cutoff? Like, what age range? Is it when you hit puberty?
I think that's typically what we've said about that, and we know that there is, a difference, and we acknowledge it between girls and boys and how that impacts them differently, particularly at the middle school level. So we know that there's a range, and that, again, by...
So my issue with that is that by going with this arrangement with middle school first, we are denying a lot of our adolescents the benefit of greater sleep. In fact, we are starting them 15 minutes earlier, which I think is incredibly detrimental. As an elementary parent myself, who will someday be a middle school parent, I would rather take one for the team and send my elementary schoolers to school earlier now, and then when they're 12, I'm not dragging their butts out of bed to be at school at 8. I went to middle school at 8, and it was really hard. I think what you posted in some of those slides, and it was hard because there was a lot of information, it talked about how elementary school students tend to function best at the beginning of the day, and I think having them in that first position would really be most advantageous for those learners, and that the middle schoolers would then benefit from that. I think also if we start elementary school last, then elementary school parents who work, it's after 9 o'clock. That means those parents are going to have to find childcare for their students before school and after school, and that at least starting them in the first position allows parents to have one block of childcare that they're requiring. That said, I think also part of the last time we proposed this, when the committee did their incredibly hard work, I wanted to acknowledge everybody. I know, Lisa, you were on that committee and you did that good work, that they proposed elementary school go first. And I don't want to dismiss that just because there was some pushback on it. Also, I think part of the pushback was that initial proposal started elementary school before 8 o'clock. And that's been something that I've long said as we've been talking about this, is that I think it's really important to not start anybody before 8 o'clock. And that was something that was introduced with this new schedule, that middle school is not starting before 8 o'clock. And so I would encourage people, as they're giving feedback, I would encourage the board and the administration to consider doing, stay with me, the reorder so that elementary is first, high school is second, middle school is last, but with the timing of the secondary swap, so that elementary school would start at 8 o'clock, then high school at 8:40, and middle school at 9:20, I believe. So that is my feeling. I will be completely transparent with folks out here that I'm really passionate about that particular order, that particular timing, and it makes me a little nervous because I very much want to vote in favor of changing our start times, but I do not believe that starting middle schoolers first is in our best interest. I believe I will be voting in favor of it tonight, but that I would look to see more flexibility before we vote a final time going forward.
Mr. Moore?
Thank you, and thanks for this presentation. Definitely put a lot and have been here for a lot of that work. And so I would also gladly join you in your position that I agree that I thought the elementary, high school, middle order works better for all of the reasons that we've been discussing, particularly around adolescents needing more sleep and, our girls maturing faster. And so that does put it at a disadvantage. I know it's a wrinkle in what we've discussed, but I do, for a lot of those childcare issues and things of the same, support that shift as something that is could potentially still be on the table for consideration as we, look to move forward with the proposed secondary swap. But I agree with Ms. Kalish that elementary being in the first position starting at 8 o'clock, not versus the 7:45 might be something that would be more amenable.
So I think it's important to, at the same time, address some of those, the tensions that come with an earlier elementary, right? If we were to do elementary at 8 and then middle school at 9:20, and the middle schoolers aren't open or over until 4:05, that's a lot of pressure in terms of after-school activities and co-curricular activities, and not just sports, any of the co-curricular activities. So I think that's just, I'm just listing out sort of.
I hear you, and we've discussed this. I know that we discussed earlier that elementary school has clubs before school sometimes, and that could be an option for whichever grade level goes last, that we could make available times before school to have club time before school at whatever point that would work.
I think the issue with middle school, though, is it's not solely related to that school. You have cross-school events. It makes our middle school times incompatible with other schools that they need to interact with. So I'll just say I support either of these plans. I don't support elementary school starting at 8 because it makes the middle school schedule so unwieldy. So if we were to consider elementary first, we would need to go back to the 2019 plan.
I also
You would like to go back to the 2019 plan.
I mean, if I had my druthers, I think the 2019 plan's probably the best plan. I understand all the concerns around the early start time for the elementary school kids, but.
I do too, and I'm just saying it's a matter of weighing what people think is more important, and if, you value certain things and other people value certain things, so it wouldn't have to be a certain way, but it would certainly make sense to entertain all the options.
I just wanted to add, I think another important consideration with elementary school going first is that they would then be out first, and a lot of families in our community rely on older students, whether it's siblings or high school students, to help provide childcare. That is something that has been discussed quite a bit, and I think that's an important acknowledgement that we have to, there are trade-offs here, and to me, that's an important trade-off to be considered. Ms. Shurek?
Sure. I have a few questions. Probably my perspective is going to come out also. I would love to understand with more concrete times where this would position the earliest elementary pickup, earliest middle school pickup, earliest high school pickup, and latest. So I have the unique position right now. I have a third grader and a fourth grader because of my students' circumstances. My fourth grader starts at Kenwood at 9 o'clock. My third grader leaves at 7 a.m. in the dark as a third grader, and due to her busing for school that starts later. And so just want to raise that in context for my question on earliest and latest drop-offs. That would be really helpful in understanding what the implications of the time schedule are. some other questions that I have are, understanding the implications of the teaching contract, and when you talk, Superintendent Schaefer, about the implications for our community, what this actually means. So having a 20-minute decrease in the high school schedule, how are we then having that translate to staffing? Is there actually efficiencies? Are we saying we are letting some high school teachers go because we won't need as many positions? Are we saying high school teachers get additional prep time or early release, or there's more flexibility? Would love to understand those implications. Similarly for the elementary school, with a 10-minute increase in the day and how we're thinking about it, what are the implications for staffing in our schools? And also, I've been trying to understand, because I'm not gonna lie, when I saw the 9:20 start time, I was like, is that gonna work for me? I am thinking about, currently the elementary's open at 9, or start at 9, the doors open at 8:40. When you say we're exploring other options, are you meaning things like potentially keeping the doors open at 8:40 the same time and being able to cover that swing period, or are you referring to other things? Could you give us a few examples potentially to have the community have context for that?
All right. So the first question you had was about pickup and drop-off time, and I, without having rerouted all of it, and I'm looking my side over to Jim Lill about this, but I think ideally we try to get in that 30 to 45-minute window so that no one's on a bus longer than that. So I would say generally that's the target. So if you did the math backwards, that's what it would look like, and I'm getting this from Jim. So we can definitely work through that and get that a little more detail on that. But it does take the actual routing to know that for certain. So I think that's always our goal, is to be in that time frame as a maximum.
Yeah.
Let's see, the implications of the teaching contract. I mean, I think that's internally the work that we are engaged in right now, is like the operational pieces of this. And when you talk about a shift minutes, you have to figure out where that's coming from. And 20 minutes is not nothing. When you think about, I think if you add it up, that's like 9 school days, like cumulatively. So you have to figure out where you're going to take that from and what is the staffing implication. I'm not thinking that that's going to be a staffing implication, but it could. So because just me doing some math around 20 minutes, it doesn't seem like it would have that kind of savings or a shift that we would need to move someone somewhere else. I do think the 10-minute increase, depending on how we utilize that could have some staffing implications. For example, if we added it to special area time, that may move the amount of sections that we can offer over the course of the day to need another section or two, which may cause some additional staffing needs at the elementary level. So, that's something we're working through, and but related to, trying to support the transition in a way that, and to your last question about if we opened at 9:20, could we support some arrival period? Again, I think that takes planning and staffing and the location to house students, and how would we identify students who would be able to be dropped off. And that wouldn't include all of our students, because some students don't have access to being dropped off every day and rely on transportation. So those are the variables, and the reason I think we all want that community engagement piece, so we can figure out what we need to do and what we actually can operationalize in that timeline. So I think those are all good questions, and hopefully I started to address them for you.
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson?
I just wanted to thank you for all this analysis and for bringing us through, from 2014, 19 on. I know when I was a parent of students in the elementary, middle, and high school, I relied heavily on my high school and middle school students to take care of my youngest. So I'm gonna vote in support of this plan, but I'd like to know when we were thinking of implementing it.
Well, in terms of the operational pieces, I think, you know, we're moving internally with the possibility of implementing as soon as possible. So, you know, that's subject to some constraints that are already out there based on prior board action. But we know, like I said, it's not the question of if. The question is when and how. And if tonight the board supports this particular proposal, that gives, you know, makes us better positioned to start making decisions and start that true planning work to move it forward. So that's why, you know, having a set, and the conversation you're having is the conversation we've been hearing for a long time, is that there are always going to be trade-offs, and you know, but in order for us to operationalize something, we do need to try to land somewhere so we can make it work as much as we can for the community.
Dr. Sotner?
I appreciate that so much, because having a stake in the ground to talk about is unbelievably important. So putting that stake in the ground, putting that date in the ground, and saying to not just everybody at the board, but I really appreciate the modeling that you're seeing up here, because this is now on you next. This same dialogue, the same debate, but also the same creativity. We need to look at the problem, we need to stake it in the ground, and then we say, how are we going to solve for these issues? That elementary school start time super worries me. I would never have been able to pull it off when my kids were in elementary school. So we have to figure out ways to solve around that. But I really appreciate the point that you made is, unless we start doing that, we'll just talk and never be able to move anything forward, because it takes that time to get the entire community, including our teachers, our bus drivers, all those members able to do that work. So less of a question, more of a thank you. And I appreciate the civic dialogue that's going on up here and soon to be out there. So thanks.
Could you speak to the bus issue? I mean, we always have we've had busing issues for a long time that are now exacerbated by a bus driver shortage. We all know that that's not just here, it's everywhere. Can you speak a little bit to, we as a district have offered something that I don't think is particularly common among other districts, and that is late buses for our middle school and our high schools, where we provide, you know, there's the bus at the end of the day, and then there's a bus route maybe an hour and a half later, and then an hour after, you know, maybe it's an hour after school and 2 hours after school, that provides bus service to our students so that they can participate in after school activities, whether it's Science Olympiad or athletics or anything else, theater, right? So that they can participate in that even if they don't have a parent at home to drive them home, right? So it provides equal access, you know, to those activities after school. What would be the impact on those late runs, the later the middle school or the high school? So I'm just thinking, if middle school is last and they go till 4, so then you'd have potentially a late bus run at 5:15, maybe one at 6:30. What's the implication of that for bus drivers that are starting their day at 7 a.m.?
I think, again, that level of service that we want to provide, because I think that access piece is really important. That's a concern we've been talking about how do we continue to do that, knowing that their day is probably going to be longer. And as we've shared, and as Ms. Kalish has advertised for us, we are, you know, in need of.
You beat me to it. I was going to do my speech. We're always hiring bus drivers. The district will train you if you want to get your CDL with an S certification. We are hiring. We just raised our rates. We have a bus driver bonus. This is usually my spiel if you want to come on Thursday mornings to the facility committee. But we're hiring bus drivers. So if you want to help us have fantastic schools and actually get your kids to school, you can drive them there and get paid to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to dovetail on your spiel. Do they get paid when they're down, when they're waiting for students? Do they get paid a full 8-hour day, or are they paid only for the work that they do? I'm just curious.
I'm going to take this, and then if Jim wants to correct me. They work split shifts. So that's why, like, it
Which
really
means what?
It means that they're working in the morning a shift, whether that's like, you know, to do the runs that we described, and then they have a break in their day, and then they come back and do the runs. Many of them do other runs in between and then do extra runs, but there's a total number of hours that they're allowed to work in the day according to federal regulations, so we have to pay attention to that. And we also, you know that thinking about just that shift in schedules, the reality is drivers start early, really early morning, and.
Right, that's why I'm asking. So
Yeah.
basically, the
It's-
answer is no, they do not get paid. They work from 6 a.m. to 9, and then they're off from
Correct.
9
so that it
to
extends their
12.
day even longer.
Right, but I'm saying, but they don't get paid for
That's
that
correct.
time.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
sorry, yes.
So that's another problem
Yeah.
in terms of getting people to want to do that work, because they're not getting paid for that downtime.
It's not helping my advertising,
So-
Kimberly.
But I want to keep it real, you know what I'm saying? If we're talking about attracting people, we have to look into the totality of the situation.
And I actually don't find it amusing at all. Like, it's a real equity issue, and so joking about it, personally, I find offensive. I have a follow-up question about students, if we're able to, are we switching away from?
Yeah, I didn't know if I completely answered the question, though, because I do, around the impact and our concern that does, to your point, I think this is a really hard schedule to work. I mean, it is, and there are things that we've tried to do to make it more attractive and compensate appropriately for that work. I mean, does anyone really like to drive in Lower Merion on Montgomery Avenue at rush hour? But that being said, I think that's the complexity of this, is in order to operationalize it, we want to make sure that we're having those conversations, that we're able to, maintain our drivers as well as do the things that we want to maintain, like late bus runs. So, yeah, I honor your point there.
But
Just
I
a
do
clarification
appreciate,
for
I'm
that.
sorry, I just wanted to say I do appreciate the work that went into this, and I am for the solution that was presented, not the one that from 2019. And I don't think that having kindergartners or elementary school students start at 7:45 is an absurdity to me. That would be very challenging, I think, for most parents to get their elementary school student up and out and get themselves ready to go to work on top of that at that particular time.
Just a point of clarification, the bus driver salaries and the way they're compensated, that's all part of collective bargaining. That's not
correct.
a unilateral decision by the district.
No, it's not. It's part of collective bargaining. Everything goes through the union. We have a wall-to-wall unit, including our drivers.
Ms. Schrock?
I had a question just back to the high school roster. I focused on the staff in my first question, but I would be curious in a future iteration to understand what the 20-minute decrease in minutes to students, what the impact could be. It could be, in my mind, it could be a whole range of things. So with like more information, and I don't know if I missed it, but if there is high school student perspective on that decrease and whatever those implications are, their reactions, perspectives, thoughts.
And I think that's really important. We heard a lot about student voice, and again, the time it takes to build in all of those conversations and do it thoughtfully and do it with buy-in is important. And I think we're poised to do that. A student survey will be one way of sharing some information, but down to that survey is not going to ask that question of how would you like us to use this 20 minutes. I guess it could, but that wasn't really the design of it initially. But we can think about the ways that we do that thoughtfully with student voice for sure. And I don't think it's all going to be taken out of transition time, or you're going to have a lot of kids sprinting up and down hallways.
The extra 20 minutes, how long is student lunch currently?
It's an hour, correct? It's the lunch and learn period. It's like 30 minutes.
I'm talking about just a break, a lunch, like
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
30 minutes, yeah. It's 6. The lunch and learn is about, I think it's 120. Yeah, lunch and learn is, I believe it's 120 because there's passing time built in, before and after and in between. And so lunches, it's 2 periods, one's a 30-minute, like a 30-minute and a 30-minute, if you think of it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Schaffmeister?
Hi. I just, I agree, I appreciate the discourse that is happening tonight as well, and I just wanted to say I am so excited that we potentially will get, having been involved with this for so long. I I don't know how many high school parents have had a similar situation like I've had, where I have an only child, but some of the hardest, most stressful part in our time was getting my kid up in the morning. I would have whole conversations with her thinking she was up, and she was sound asleep. And you go back in and go, "You're not ready." But I'm to my question now is, Radnor has moved to a similar timings that we're suggesting now. Is there any feedback that you've heard from them as far as how is it going for their parents and how they're accommodating issues like we are discussing?
Well, I don't want to, I hear a rumbling in the, behind me that I think that, there has been feedback around that. It's been implemented for a few years. It seems to be running successfully. I think those are the questions that we need to ask as we get into solving problems here, not problems, I didn't mean that word, solving challenges here and opportunities for mitigating those challenges. That's again, going back to like, how are we doing that so we can get the feedback so that we mitigate it the way that Lower Merion needs that mitigation to happen. And I think I can't answer that specifically around, to your point, I don't have all of the details of what all of the hurdles were, but certainly, as we move forward, we'd love, to hear their feedback on, I know, some of the challenges that we face moving forward too.
Though we'd take that with a grain of salt because their district is about half the size of ours, yes?
Yes, and that's important. They're, from a student population standpoint, from the number of schools and from the area that's covered, and that relates to how the transportation becomes much more complex and how we have to, operationalize this. So yes, thank you for sharing.
But from an individual parent perspective, it doesn't matter what size the district is.
Right. No, I wanted to add that they did make the change, and they have since made some, they've continued to make adjustments as needed, right? So they did something specific with their PE classes to accommodate the change, and then have since, thought through or, realized that those changes didn't really quite work. So then they sort of went a different direction and made some additional changes to their overall PE curriculum and what that looks like. So they made a change and then made some adjustments. And I think that that's what we're talking about, and something that I think we would all need to recognize as a likelihood is that we could make a change, and that there might be other additional small changes that need to be made as we move forward. I do want to follow up on sort of the idea of putting a stake in the ground and talking about what is our target date. And recommend, and I think, I'm just going to say it here, but I think that I do know that process-wise I need to do it separately, but to just put it out there now, the idea of adding into this recommendation that the motion that we would vote on is to say, we want to target September of 2023, target the 23-24 school year, and acknowledge that there's operational work to be done to make sure that can happen. We know that there are pieces to that, but that doesn't mean we can't target it, going back to Dr. Sautner's point about putting a stake in the ground. But then also it gives us an opportunity through this community engagement process where, there's gonna be various forms and various opportunities, and that includes community meetings, both in person and on Zoom, that will include students, and there'll be also opportunities for staff, that was laid out in one of the things, to say, how can we, let's acknowledge what these challenges are and how can we work towards solving them, right? So that we know that they have somewhat been identified, but we want to take that step and say, okay, on a family level, what does that mean? How can we move forward?
So one benefit of being one of the later districts and getting this done is we can actually try to talk to other districts. Sorry, I'm looking for the positive here. We can ask other districts like Radnor, but I feel like somebody told me Unionville's in the middle of this right now too. So that might be they already did it, thank you. But it might be good. So I thought somebody else was right in the only other one with us, but it might be good to kind of talk through and see like what were the mistakes made that we can kind of learn off of, or at least just be aware of they could impact us. Could you just go back to slide 21, because we keep talking about community engagement, and I just want to make sure everybody sees like we're just talking about a few things we've brought to the table. But what we really need is the whole community to say, this is something that we also need to bring to the table that we're not thinking of, because it's everybody's lived experience. So I really do think there's lots of ways to engage, but it's also going to be unbelievably important to get the word out. And to make sure everybody's engaged. So can you just share some of the thoughts and ideas that your team has had about how do we spread the word out, and then what can the community do to echo that and amplify the message? And maybe it's Amy.
Well, I'm getting my side eyes over here to Amy. We've talked about it internally, various different ways to our usual methods of communication, our school messengers, emails, putting it on our website. We have an infographic that we've developed that we'd like to use as sort of like standardized messaging that captures some of the same images that I've used tonight. So it's that consistency of messaging across different platforms. We also, are going to, what we want to also be mindful of is that we know the usual methods don't get to everyone. So our continual improvement, which I love that word, that's something that I'm going to always talk about, is that we find, where we have to go and get the information, and whether that's by, a paper survey or doing a forum group outside of a school setting. I mean, those are the things that we have to do. And again, just to reiterate, like, we want that to be done well, because it's oftentimes the place where you didn't look is where that answer is that you needed to know in order to do it well. So, we will continue to look at various ways to engage in making sure that it's representative of all the voices that we can possibly represent. Obviously, these are sort of more customary methods that we will engage in with support by outside consultants, so that we can do this really robustly and efficiently, ideally, so that decisions can be made and we can move forward.
Great, and this you can't answer now, but I will just put it on the table. Sorry, just real quick follow up on that. If we can think through maybe an update coming up that can tell us what does success look like for getting community engagement? Because, knowing that we want a survey that the kids all respond to, and maybe we do put that extra question about how it affects their day, but what's like the ballpark numbers on, we want community engagements, but we also want to see this many people at it, because then we'll know, are we hitting our goal as we're getting there? And I know you've talked about that before in the past, also with getting the word out, that's a part of it. So we don't wait till the end to say, we didn't hear from enough people. We kind of pressure test it as we go through.
Yeah, and fortunately we have a communications committee coming up. Is that what you want to, can I defer for a second?
Well, I just wanted to say that we had some really good practice with the kindergarten survey that we just put out, and we leaned on some sources outside of the district for that, including our township commissioners who helped us by putting survey links in their newsletters to constituents. We use our social media a lot, or using it even more now with Instagram, that reaches sort of a whole different audience, including our students who don't necessarily receive the school messengers that their parents and guardians receive. So we are talking to some outside consultants as well, but I think that between the superintendent search and the kindergarten committee, we've gotten a lot of practice on reaching out beyond just our school community. And we also have some great community partners who have helped us with paper surveys and translation services and things like that to, again, reach beyond those people that ordinarily answer everything. And so we'll be putting every effort forth to really do that kind of sweep to get the word out as best we can.
I'm just going to put a plug. There's a group that's run by Amy Goldman and some Roberta Winter, some other women, called the Regional Adolescent Sleep NC, RASNAC. Needs Committee. And there are representatives from lots of different school districts, whether it's school board members and occasionally superintendents or assistant superintendents and things like that. So there is a lot of information out there in terms of what other districts are doing. And they meet the first Monday of every month. So I'll just put that out there as something, and I can share that information with everyone again. Do we have other? Okay. Oops. Okay, so now we will move on. We are next on our agenda are our committee meeting reports. Thank you very much, Ms. Schaefer, for that presentation. Should have started with that. It's quite a first day. So we already heard our student representative reports from Ms. Wu and Ms. Simmons, so I'm going to move on. We'll go through our committee reports. First was the December 21st Equity and Anti-Racism meeting. Mr. Moore.
Sure. So on Wednesday, December 21st, the Equity and Anti-Racism Committee met at 7 p.m. As the Equity and Anti-Racism Committee was recommended to be moved from ad hoc status to standing committee on the board. And with that, the focus of this meeting was to also revisit the mission and grounding of the Equity and Anti-Racism Committee in the All Forward Plan. Our newly hired Director of DEI, Ms. Shawana James Coles, walked us through a presentation noting how the commitment to DEI is embedded in each core category of the All Forward Plan, and shared some specific examples both in the plan as well as in the individual buildings. Noted how the DEI structure is now consistent from the board level through central administration, and shared and communicated to at the building level through principals and school-based DEI liaisons. We also had a brief update on the equity study being conducted by Education Northwest. The sections of the study include enhancing diversity and equity and inclusivity within the curriculum and its delivery, strengthening opportunities for staff to engage in professional growth around DEI topics, amplifying DEI in LMSD's approaches to hiring, staffing, and retention, and engaging with the LMSD community on topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion. There have been 2 initial white paper drafts submitted to the administration on professional development, a professional development report, as well as a hiring report. The curriculum report is in development and anticipated for delivery as of the first week in January. And also a building landscape scan interviews were being conducted at that time, and were scheduled to be distributed to the principals in January. The next Equity and Anti-Racism Committee meeting is scheduled for February 22nd at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Mooring. I'm going to switch order a little bit now and have Mr. Lee do the facilities and purchasing report.
Thank you. Normally we save the best for last, but I recently had knee surgery, so I need to finish the meeting over Zoom. This is the report of the Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting, January 19th, 2023. The following items were discussed by the committee and recommended for approval at tonight's meeting. We recommended the list of district bills for approval. We reviewed and discussed the purchasing report. There were 2 items from the purchasing report that were not recommended by the committee for approval. One was a bid from MA Bright Bill Body Works for 5 Type D diesel 72-passenger school buses at a cost of $218,820 per bus. The second was a request for bids for 72-passenger compressed natural gas school buses, where the district received no vendor bids. We recommended the following items from the purchasing report for approval. $11,750 from Cherry Valley Tractor Sales for a new Kubota RTV to replace the existing tractor at Welsh Valley Middle School to be used for snow removal and custodial tasks. $9,965 from Mac Flooring for purchase and installation of replacement carpet tiles for the Coral Room at Welsh Valley Middle School. $17,850 from Mac Flooring for the purchase of replacement carpet tiles for the library at Welsh Valley Middle School. Installation will be performed at a future time. $681,524 from MA Bright Bill Body Works for the purchase of 4 Type C diesel 72-passenger school buses at a cost of $171,381 per bus and $4,000 total trade-in value for the 4 buses they will be replacing. The district was unable to secure bids from any manufacturer for CNG buses for replacing those 4. $628,260 from Roar Bus Sales for the purchase of 4 Type C diesel 72-passenger school buses at a cost of $159,640 per bus and $10,300 total trade-in value for the 4 buses they will be replacing. These 2 bus purchases are planned capital purchase and are included in the capital reserve budget. $25,931.10 from Educational Furniture Solutions for additional furniture for the project studios, learning studios, and science rooms for Black Rock Middle School. $52,230 from FW Webb Company for boiler parts and accessories to upgrade the boiler at Kinwood Elementary. 2 purchases from BSN Sports for Black Rock Middle School, $7,625 for high jump equipment, and $13,717.29 for track equipment. $227,893 from Starlight for the purchase of 28 interactive projectors to continue elementary classroom AV upgrades district-wide. We recommended the following district contracts for approval. New contracts with the following: Brooke Workman Consulting for coaching and support for the Foundations implementation district-wide for $15,000. 2 license agreements with St. Joseph's University for the use of Hagan Arena for 2023 graduation ceremonies at rates of $20,117.18 for Harriton High School and $22,692.37 for Lower Merion High School. Renewals with the following: School Threat Assessment Consultants to conduct 2 comprehensive school threat assessment workshops for $8,000. E+ for renewal of the VMware server virtualization software for $35,095.81. Work orders with the following: Presidio Networked Solutions for phone system hardware and licensing, replacing the current end-of-life phone system for $43,281.66. E+ for purchase and for replacement distribution switches for $55,740. E+ for installation services related to the replacement distribution switches for $16,470. E+ for ongoing services related to the migration of on-site Microsoft Exchange to the cloud for $29,640. AVT TriCasters for purchase and installation of replacement AV equipment for Harriton High School and Lower Merion High School for a total of $63,710. We recommended the following change orders for Black Rock Middle School for approval. 11 change orders for IMC construction, a credit of $6,411.32 for unused labor related to an uninstalled IT kiosk. $10,843.69 for a flooring structure change in the theater storage area. $4,567.62 for additional rock excavation needed for trenching related to utilities. $5,237.52 for changes to the soffit in the dining hall. $7,141.77 for necessary roof drainage that was omitted in error on the plans. A credit of $7,537.24 due to a reduction in scope of masonry work needed in the gym. $1,438.05 for repairs of damage to a gate during construction. $8,807.29 for plumbing modifications required due to conflicting plan drawings for Courtyard A. A credit of $6,545.79 for elimination of 8 salvaged marble slab benches. $3,602.28 for installation of solid surface on exposed sills. $2,017.25 for waterproofing installation in a planter. 1 change for JBM Mechanical, $14,156 for repair of damaged snowmelt tubing. The repair charges will be back charged to the contractor who damaged them. 5 change orders for Borough Electrical, $1,506.56 for electrical modifications needed to the Science Lab hood. $2,416.49 for electrical changes needed to the clinic bathroom. $924.85 for removal and reinstallation of receptacles at the slat wall. $12,827.40 for electrical work needed to support science room equipment. $1,661.92 for installation of connections to support the kiln blower. We received an update on the construction of Black Rock Middle School. The school is open and work continues on construction closeout and punch list items. Two of the more important ones affecting school operations are bleacher rail installations in the main gym, expected to be completed mid-January. I believe they're completed now. And final surfacing of the running track, which will occur in the summer after the school year ends. There's $61,415 of forecasted future change orders. There are $1,927,317 in claims made by contractors and $450,000 in claims made against contractors by Lower Merion School District, which will both be resolved through a dispute resolution process. Including all disputed claims, the total project cost is $105,884,375, which is higher than the $101,563,038 projected cost at the time of the contract award, but is significantly less than the $114,062,616 original construction estimate. To date, there have been $4,971,707 in total change orders on the construction project, the bulk of which have come from four causes. $2,222,464 of the change orders resulted from additional work related to soil excavation and site preparation. $632,122 in change orders resulting from omissions or errors made by the architectural firm in the building design. $970,353 in change orders resulting from omissions or errors made by professionals and subconsultants related to building design. And $624,622 in change orders from school district requests. The next Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting will be on Thursday, February 16th, 2023, 8:30 a.m., and I expect all of you to be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Our next report will be from the January 4th Curriculum Committee meeting.
Thank you, and I'm gonna slash my report a little bit because I know everybody's waiting to talk. We began with an approval of a contract for Brooke Workman as a foundations consultant for up to, I believe, $15,000, including a discussion of what's being offered and how her work will be assessed. Next, we had a presentation on disaggregated state testing data. I really encourage everybody to go and either look at the slides and or listen to the recording of that meeting that was presented at both the Curriculum Committee meeting and at the Full Board Educational Committee meeting. And so that is up there. I'm not going to go much in depth. There were a lot of highs and some lows, and there were some strategies for working on that going forward. We then had a presentation on the requested purchase of interactive projectors that was first presented, this was presented to the Curriculum Committee at the request of the Facilities Committee. The Curriculum Committee did recommend that to the Facilities Committee, which in turn recommended this action to be approved for full board tonight. The next, that's my next committee report. The next CCOB meeting will be Wednesday, February 1st, 8:30 in the morning in this room.
Thank you, Ms. Kalish. Ms. Shurak, the Policy Committee meeting?
Thanks so much. The Policy Committee met January 6th. We started with reviewing our policies that were proposed for adoption, including looking at the student voter engagement policy, as well as incorporating a repeal into the AR around our policy 720. We then moved on to looking at those policies that were proposed for approval and talked about the different processes and approved the status information of the Concrete Equity and Racism Committee to no longer be an ad hoc. Jill Altschuler came up to podium and did speak to us and talked about, do the committee set meeting times outside of the times listed, which we do not, and suggested that there be purpose and objective set for each meeting and shared proactively so all community members can have line of sight into topics. We then did a first reading and review of policy AR 825, relationship with law enforcement, and dug into the specific language, really with the focus on protecting students and employees in situations. And we're moving forward to a first reading at the board of that policy and our memorandum with our law enforcement I don't know what we call it, colleagues, yeah. In terms of administrative regulations, we talked at length as a follow-up on food services and discussed changes to update in alignment with delinquent account language to ensure that we are serving all of our students equitably and no student in our district is made to feel singled out for whatever reason they might need support with our lunch program. Jill Altschuler had shared that we could further articulate who's in receipt of donated money, and Vic clarified that when we have families donate money per our policy, that we start with seniors in the disbursement of funds who need support and work with school-based teams to ensure that accounts are rectified in an equitable manner based on need. We then dug into policy AR, or the AR of policy 134-2, which is sorry, it's late, y'all. Technological, can you say it again? Thank you, technology resources. And a really interesting conversation about what are devices and how is tech defined. And so really talked about that. Lisa Prosnitz brought up some questions about how we notify graduates of our district when technology will be turned off in terms of emails and clouds and other information. We were able to dig into those. And then also clarifying questions about what was being covered in the AR versus the policy were considered. President Klein asked about right to know and information that comes up through use of technology when students are using our technology. And Ken informed us it would be a pretty extreme case that a student to student would be subject to a right to know in relation to the policy. However, something to note is that student board representative reports and emails could be subject to right to know. And so we then had a lengthy discussion about student wellness, and just want to state the opportunity and frame that the current wellness policy is by no means what we want or hope for, and that was the impetus for us discussing it at the meeting. And we even talked about how it's like so outdated you might get a chuckle in reading through it. And so really, how are we working with the committee, and how are we moving our wellness policy forward? Also acknowledging that policy or wellness is not in isolation. So our work in Healthy Start Times and Full Day K and equity, it's all integrated in alignment to what we want to be true for our students. And as we continue to work in student wellness, how can we capture that in the policy so that the subsequent ARs and work that we are then held to can fall within that. And so we had a lengthy discussion there. We also got feedback that our work to date has not been up to snuff from some perspectives about engagement with the committee. And so how can we follow up? Since that meeting, Megan and I did some work to define the upcoming meetings that we will be having with the Wellness and Committee, and a timeline for finalizing the policy in advance of the end of this school year, so that we can hopefully implement the work as a result of the policy by next school year. And then finally, Mr. Ezra Wood shared feedback around sleep, and Lisa Prosnett shared feedback around healthy start times and the connection to wellness. And then we will be talking in the future. Lucy shared about some different points of engaging with the board on Coffee with the Board and avenues of communication. And for our future discussion, tax waiver requests, cybersecurity, name, image, and likeness, home education, and school day for people. Denise, or pupil, or people. Denise, I'm not sure when our next meeting is. Can you help me out? That's a real question. I think it's next, next Friday, the next policy
It's
meeting.
February 3rd.
Thank you.
She's like, what?
Where are you listening to? I'm just kidding.
For the public, we've been here since 6:30. It's been a long night.
January, our last committee report is the legislative committee we had on January 18th.
I thought you were giving the new date, but yes, I do have a legislative committee report. I will again try to keep this short. The legislative committee only meets periodically. This particular time, we hosted Jennifer Hoff, who is a board member at William Penn School District. She's formerly their board president, and she is formerly the regional PSBA advocacy ambassador. PSBA is Pennsylvania School Boards Association. She and her district, William Penn School District, are the lead plaintiff in the fair funding lawsuit that is, they've been waiting for a verdict for 6 months now, and it could come down soon. It could come down in 5 minutes, who knows? But she gave us a really interesting grounding in what fair funding is and what it could mean for both our district and districts like hers, rural districts, all the varying types of districts in Pennsylvania. It's a really important issue. She then led a moderated conversation on advocacy and how to advocate for school issues that are important to each individual person, both for the board members that were in the meeting and for community members that were in the meeting. It was a really good discussion, and I really encourage members of the public to go on and go onto our website and watch that meeting. I believe it was only an hour, and it was really, really informative. Our next meeting of the Legislative Committee will be May 18th.
Thank you very much. I just, so that is the end of our committee meetings that have met. I did want to give a Finance Committee update, which will begin meeting in the coming months. The board has been asked to consider 2 different tax resolutions. The first, a property tax rebate program for seniors aged 65 and older, and possibly other qualifying individuals, which is something that we, as a board, had passed a resolution in, I believe it was June 2020, but we're waiting for some, for a lawsuit settlement, but now we can reconsider that. And the second, a volunteer firefighter tax credit rebate. The proposed senior property tax rebate would be modeled upon the existing Pennsylvania property tax and rent rebate program, which has been in effect since 1971 and is funded by state lottery and slot machine proceeds. Multiple other school districts have established a similar program. In addition, while townships and boroughs, including Lower Merion Township and Narberth Borough, have established volunteer service credit and/or rebate programs, we have the opportunity to be one of the first school districts to do so, to establish a volunteer tax credit rebate for residents who are active members of a volunteer fire company or nonprofit emergency medical services agencies in the district. To further encourage membership and service in these critical volunteer organizations, the Pennsylvania legislature extended the authority to offer a volunteer service tax credit to school districts in 2020. Because of the various options available and decisions that would need to be made, including the percentage of real property tax credit that will be offered and the criteria for inclusion in the programs that these resolutions would establish, we're going to refer them for further review to the Finance Committee as part of the budget discussions, because it does impact, obviously, our budget on the revenue side. So that is our committee updates. I appreciate all of you that are still here tonight, and we are now here in time for our audience recognition. So at this time, we will hear public comment. If you would like to speak at tonight's meeting and have not yet signed up with Ms. LaPera, please do so now. She has the list up there. And for those of you joining us via the webinar, the chat feature will now be open, and you'll see a 10-minute timer up here on your screen. You can submit your comments and or questions via the chat feature. Please be sure, whether you're in person or via chat, to begin with your full name and where you reside within the district in order for your comment to be shared. So first we'll do the in-person, and then we'll read, Ms. Brooks will read our chat comments. Ms. LaPera, do we have any in-person comments for tonight's meeting?
Yes, we do. We'll start with Jamie Singer, then Indira, sorry. Not going to try her last name. And then Sarah Thomas and Ann Conroy.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Singer, and I'm a resident of Penn Valley. I first want to say that I am a proud product of the Lower Merion School District. I went all through the school. I graduated from Lower Merion High School. My twins also are proud products, and they graduated from Harrington High School. They were involved at Welsh Valley and also at Harrington in sports all that time. So I'm speaking like from a sports mom perspective, from a mom perspective, and from a resident. I've also had a long-standing interest in the history of Lower Merion Township, which started embarrassingly, when I was a kid, and I found out that in my neighborhood, Washington's army, on I believe it was November 17th, 1777, spent the night in a field that became my neighborhood. And so I just thought that was the most amazing thing. So I'm here to talk about how we might save Oakwell, and I think it's important. Now, I'm going to ask you school board members a question. You're not going to answer me, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And the question is, who here on the school board has not visited Oakwell? You're not going to answer me. That's okay. Because what I want to do is offer you okay, you have it.
If you did the other way, you'd have more here.
No, I was strategic about that one. So here's the thing. On Sunday at 1 o'clock, you can join me. You can meet me in the parking lot at Oakwell. We have a tour, and I'll even get you out before the Eagles game. How's that for a deal? Here's the thing. I've had the honor for the past couple months of leading tours of Oakwell. So I know this place intimately. What I can tell you is that everybody who has been on a tour with me or with other people that are touring has seen the rare and interesting and unusual and very important things that Oakwell has to offer. These people have understood that there are 1,000 trees. We're making discoveries about the trees, by the way, all the time. 1,000 trees will be clear cut. Some of these are heritage trees, and they're really important, and we've made recent discoveries. They've seen all the interesting architecture that was developed by a major Philadelphia architect. They've seen and understood the history of a collaboration between the leading landscape architects of their time, between Oakwell, thank you, Stoneleigh, and these are, so they understand, and they've come away with a real understanding of why this property is so critical, and it's beautiful, and I encourage you, you can come. It's just very important to see what all it offers. The students who spoke so eloquently have come in and spoken before. I know they're in their midterm enrichment. I'm old. I don't know what enrichment means as far as the midterms are concerned. But I wanted to experience. Those students have been so dedicated and so impressive with their ideas, with their persistence. You should be very proud that these are Harrington and Lower Merion students who have really excelled. And I just want to end by paraphrasing. They're very good at marketing themselves, if you haven't noticed. They had a previous they had a new marketing tagline this time. A previous tagline, I will say, I have no time remaining. I can't even tell you. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Singer.
Indira, then Sarah Thomas and Ann Conroy.
Hi, I'm Indira Gurubagavatula. I am a Bryn Mawr resident and a parent of 2 kids. One is a very proud graduate of Harrington and is now a sophomore in college, and I have an 8th grader at Black Rock. My daughter actually served on that advisory committee for later start times in 2019. She was a very proud representative and fought very, very hard for this change. I remember the mornings when it was so hard to get her up. She would do anything for just 30 seconds more of sleep. And just a couple days ago, she texted us her college schedule, and she was beaming, no class before 10:30 a.m. I'm not jealous at all. I would just say that I'm really glad we're having this discussion. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for all the hard work you've been doing and all the engagement. I know it hasn't been easy. But we all realize the status quo is unacceptable and it's dangerous for our high schoolers. We've waited a long time. The year 2014 was brought up, but it's actually 1999 when the issue was first brought up. So we're coming up on 23 years, and that's a long time, and that's a lot of children that have continued to suffer. And the longer we wait, the more the numbers. There is an urgency to act. It is, when you think about the number of children that are being harmed, it also means, on the flip side, the sooner you make a decision and commit, fall 2023, that means that with that single policy decision, you will help more kids with one policy decision than you will with any other. So there's a lot at stake. So I urge you not to wait. The other thing I will say is it really, 6 of one, half dozen of the other, whether elementary first, middle school first, you've very nicely laid out what some of the challenges are. Biologically, probably elementary school would do a little bit better going first. There is this witching hour because they tend to get up early, so late in the afternoon. Teachers can tell you what their behaviors are like as the day goes on. And tired young kids don't put their head down and go to sleep. They act out. So that's just something to keep in mind. But I just commend you, and I thank you for all the work you've done. And to quote the yard signs that have been set up, it's about time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Thomas, then Ann Conroy, and Renee Tobin.
Sarah Thomas, Winwood. I would like to thank Dr. McGloin for the presentation on full-day kindergarten. I strongly urge the board to vote in favor of the recommendation for universal implementation of full-day kindergarten, starting with the 2024-2025 school year. I'm also very pleased that there's a recommendation for the expansion of K+ or a similar program to start in fall of 2023. I would also like to thank Ms. Schaefer for the presentation on healthy start times. I urge the district to continue discussions on this topic with the community in order to put forward a plan that is best for all of our students. Exploring options such as expanding walk zones and working with the township to increase walkability to our schools through increased sidewalks could provide solutions, rather than just focusing on the actual start times. Additionally, we need to be looking at bus pickup and drop-off times, not just school start and end times. If a school starts at 8 o'clock, but students are getting picked up at 7, that needs to be taken into account. Thank you, Anna, for bringing attention to this matter. I do have some concerns with the current proposed ordering of school start times, how late in the day elementary school is scheduled to end, and the jump from a 9:20 start time to an 8 o'clock start time for students going from elementary to middle school. This is a large change at a time when students are starting to need later waking times. My other concern is for elementary students who receive breakfast at school and those students not getting a breakfast until after 9 a.m. Finally, I would like to echo the comments of the students who spoke regarding Oakwell. I strongly urge the school board to work on creating a resolution to put a pause on any construction at Oakwell until the district conducts a thorough needs assessment. The needs of the district have likely changed in the past 10+ years, and before taking down any trees, we should do our due diligence. The fact that the district has gone this far into the process of designing fields without doing a needs assessment is troubling. I also ask that the district be more transparent regarding field sites that have been explored and the reasons why those sites were not chosen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Ann Conroy, Renee Tobin, Kathy Kurtz.
Hello, my name is Ann Conroy, and I live in Gladwin. And I'm speaking because I oppose the construction of the playing fields at Oakwell, obviously. I have not heard clear answers about alternatives to Oakwell, why they are not possible. For instance, and it's only one instance, but I often use facilities at the town park in Gladwin, and I'm aware of the fact that there are softball and other fields at Gladwin Elementary that are often unused. The cost of field construction has not been clearly articulated, but it certainly makes more sense to use facilities already available than to construct new fields. It's not clear exactly how many students are expected to use these fields and how many months a year they will be used. Gladwin Elementary is only one alternative that I know about, but it's one that I see personally, and you've heard other people express the same concern about why are the other alternatives not acceptable. To destroy a magnificent and environmentally important property for minimal use when there appear to be other alternatives is poor management. Alternative fields such as Gladwin are probably closer to the homes of the students anyway, and more efficient and convenient for the students to be bused from there or to go home from there. I don't have children in the district, but as taxpayers and residents, we all want the district to do well. I don't understand the district priorities in financial resources to construct minimally used, incredibly controversial athletic facilities. We've all just heard 86% of the families in this district want certain things, you know, thank you, yes. I mean, that's something that is incredibly important and well supported. And instead, we're focusing on something that's highly controversial. You've heard passionate and articulate students strongly oppose Oakwell, and I just feel that this destructive construction project has to be reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Renee Tobin, Kath Kurtz, Deborah Robbins, and then Dina Yaski.
I'm Renee Tobin. Am I the right person to be speaking? Yes, thank you. Awesome, thanks. I'm Renee Tobin still. I live in Bryn Mawr. I am a parent of a Blackrock student, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for putting a stake in the ground and being willing to say healthy start times need to happen for September and not keep talking about it. When my son was in elementary school, the school district I lived in at the time did this change. And so I was able to experience what it was like to go from having a kid who used to start at 8:45, start at 7:45 in second grade, when in first grade it was 8:45. And the biggest thing that I learned from that, and our whole district learned from that, was that change doesn't happen in an isolated way. We're thinking about it in a very abstract way, and when you actually experience it, all of the things that happen in life fill out around it, and you make it work. And we need to just make it work. So we're all here to make this happen for September. Please, let's make it work.
Thank you, Ms. Tobin.
Hello, my name is Kath Kurtz. I live in Narberth. My daughter went to Lower Merion schools a long time ago. I'm a longtime resident, and for the first time last week, I did the tour at Oakwell, and it just blew my mind. It is an incredible, incredible place, and I can't imagine why you would let any part of it be destroyed for playing fields with such minimal use. The other thing I want to say is I'm so impressed in hearing your discussions tonight. I've never been to a school board meeting. I'm really impressed at how much work you do and how much work you've done to survey the community about these issues, start time and kindergarten. Will you survey the community for what the community really wants to happen to this precious, precious 14 acres? You know, we all worry about global warming, which is huge and dire for my grandchildren, if not for me. But we have a chance to really do something very specific on these 14 acres to make a difference here in Lower Merion for our air quality and for the headwaters of the streams that focus all around the community. So I'm asking you to go see it and ask residents what their priorities are for this. You've done a great job asking other people about other issues, so ask about this. Find out what the priorities of the community are. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to respond. The entire board has been to Oakwell. We've all visited.
Deborah Robbins, Dina Yaski, and then Ann Foot.
Good evening. Deborah Robbins from Villanova. And first, I want to thank the responsible parties for all of the hard work on the Healthy Start Times and full-day kindergarten, a long time coming. I wish it had been in my day, but I give you all the credit in the world. This is great to hear, and I'm happy for the parents who will benefit. For months, the question dominating the discussion regarding Oakwell has been, where do we build accessory fields? What we should be asking is, why do we build accessory fields? The fields that the district claims are needed are primarily intended for baseball, softball, and soccer. The district has provided little evidence of the need for the fields based on the number of students who would be using them. They do, however, provide this data to the state as required by Act 82 of 2012. This information is available on the website for each school. The data reveals that district-wide, baseball participation averages 66 students per year. That's district-wide. Softball averages 45. Baseball and softball are played in the spring, and the combined average of these sports district-wide equals about 111 students. Math was never my strong subject. But Black Rock is one of 3 middle schools, so we expect about 1/3 that number, about 37 students, to play baseball and softball. For boys and girls soccer played in the fall, combined average is 132 students per year district-wide. 1/3 of that number suggests a total of about 44 students could be expected to participate in soccer at Black Rock. The bottom line is that accessory fields would be used for 37 or so students in the spring and 44 in the fall. $20 million is a lot of money to spend to benefit roughly 81 students. We question $20+ million for athletes alone when it would be more equitable to utilize district resources, money, land, staff, buses, equipment, to be put to optimal use for the benefit of all students, especially our kindergartners, our sleep-deprived high schoolers, aspiring athletes, and non-athletes alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
Dina Yaski, then Ann Foot, and Sandra Chukron? Oh, wait, Shukron, sorry.
Hi, Dina Yaski of Wynwood, and I'd like to begin tonight by thanking the administration, and particularly Drs. McGloin and Guadioso, as well as the participants who serve on the kindergarten committee for making the recommendation tonight to plan for full-day kindergarten implementation for the 24-25 school year. This recommendation reflects the importance and the priority that the community places on providing a full program with equitable opportunities for our youngest learners. It also reflects the admission that a full-day program will provide the best academic, social, and emotional education for our students, and is a proven intervention to address struggles the district currently faces, including eliminating achievement gaps. I can't urge the board strongly enough to approve this recommendation. This plan is 100% logistically and financially achievable for 2024 if we continue to prioritize it. I also urge the district to support growing the K+ program and use the available space that the committee has identified to expand the qualification criteria and open the program to those who qualify in all 6 elementary schools. That will provide more equity and opportunity for all of our children. The expansion would allow discovery and practice for full-day kindergarten rollout as we learn to move our students effectively across buildings, and makes budgetary sense as we look to spread staffing costs across multiple budget years. It would also provide high-quality, comprehensive education for more of our students who have been determined to need it most. I'm excited for this long-awaited recommendation and thankful for the community advocacy and support of the Lower Merion School District teachers and administration that has led us here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ann Foot, Sandra Shukron, and then Laura Goldenberg.
Good evening. I'm Ann Foot from Gladwin, and I'm just popping in for a checkup on your reading this last month and wondering if anybody had a chance to read The Nature of Oaks by Doug Ptolemy. So that was your homework, but I won't make you raise your hands. But I did want to know, was there any interest at all in maybe getting more copies? Because people are busy, you don't have time to read all the time, I realize that. But in my research, before I talked to you last week, I have Doug Ptolemy's CV. So I didn't run off one for everybody because that would be environmentally irresponsible because it's very, very packed. I just thought it would be fun for you to just pass that quickly along to see that if you do get a chance to read this book, it hopefully will inform the environmental issues that Oakwell provides, with oak trees, of course, being one of the many species there that is a keystone species as well. But the other thing that I wanted to say, I was really impressed, as the person from Narberth said, about the presentations. I just really felt like I really understand better the all-day kindergarten and the late start. And so my question is, why does Oakwell, and maybe I'm just clueless or something, but why do we not have an email that people in the community can ask questions? Or why, and I'm assuming that those sites that were posted up there would get responses, is that right? Do those questions get answers from somebody? Because that's, I think, such an issue, is the not knowing what's going on and having so much information and not being really able to decipher just what are the issues. So basically, I hope that maybe, is there a way we could have a Save Oakwell and a email thing that somehow we could find out actually what people thought in the school district. I mean, I've never even heard a parent say that they wanted these fields for their kids. So, I mean, maybe a dialogue could ensue as well. I mean, I'm happily will listen to anybody and hopefully really resolve what the people in the district want and what is really best for the district. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Sandra Shukron, and I live in Penn Valley. My two daughters are proud graduates of Lower Merion schools. Mistakes happen by individuals, companies, governments, and school boards. The only way to correct a mistake is to change direction. In fact, the school board did exactly that on January 14th, 2019, demonstrating that it can pivot in the face of overwhelming evidence. There was an agreement of sale for land on Spring Mill Road for playing fields, an agreement the board terminated specifically because wetlands were discovered on the property that would have, quote, significantly increased the cost of turning them into playing fields, unquote. Unfortunately, the board's response was to buy land at Oakwell, a unique historic and environmental site. This purchase has required additional significant capital to design the project, move it through the township's approval process, and plan to develop the land. It's expensive to thwart Mother Nature. Oakwell also contains wetlands that will require costly engineering and clear cutting. Wetlands are among the most productive ecosystems in the world, comparable to rainforests and coral reefs. 3 watersheds are fed from the water at Oakwell. Local environmentalists believe the destruction of Oakwell's wetlands will lead to increased flooding on Montgomery Avenue. There has been a groundswell of opposition to the project on the part of township residents and especially students. Student athletes who know what fields they need have denounced this project as a waste of money, pleading for the board to change course. Students have made numerous insightful proposals for ways to provide the middle school with the use of fields without moving forward on a costly project that is a PR nightmare. The board should take these proposals seriously. Oakwell, an albatross around the school board's neck, needs to be resolved now before demolition starts in June. And the board needs to be upfront with the public about what's going on behind closed doors. The board must safeguard the funds with which it's entrusted. A mistake was made. Let's acknowledge it and move on. As the lawyers' fees pile up, the time is now for appropriate organizations to buy the land at Oakwell from the school district. This debacle is unworthy of Lower Merion Township. Only courage, determination, and facing the truth will put an end to needless conflict and let the board move on to the other issues it must face. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Laura Goldenberg, Lisa Prosnitz, Esther Kim.
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Goldenberg from Bala Cynwyd. I'm very pleased that you've put a proposal on the table today for Healthy Start Times, and I thank you for that. This is real progress. I support this plan that puts the health and safety of our kids first, with particular concern for our high schoolers, without any linkage to lights on athletic fields. You've come this far, and I know there's still work to be done, but I really hope and insist that implementation of the new schedule will begin in September of 2023. That's the main reason I'm here, but I also fully support full preservation of Oakwell and laud you, the recent speaker, on what she just said. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lisa Prosnitz, Esther Kim, and then Renita Thomas.
Lisa Prosnitz, Penn Valley. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you, all of our school board directors, our administrators, and want to recognize Ms. Klein for bringing forward this proposal tonight. Also wanted to congratulate Ms. Schaefer. As you know, Healthy Start Times has been a topic of discussion since 1999, more actively since 2014. Healthy Start Times for students, we hear it a lot about it at these meetings, but I wanted to take a moment to remind us all why we are talking about it. We now know in ways that we didn't before that the 7:30 start time is detrimental to our secondary students' health, including those in middle school. We know that they aren't able to learn, make solid decisions. They struggle with obesity and driver safety. Anxiety becomes unmanageable. Depression sets in. Lmsd is not immune to these issues, as evidenced by the recent PACE data and Challenge Success Survey results from 2018. This is due to a shift in melatonin that happens in adolescence. While this current proposal is imperfect, beyond having our entire district start at 8:30 or 9, there is no perfect solution. Let's remember that this is a solution for children from K to 12 and that there are busing constraints. Let's not have perfection be the enemy of the good. In terms of moving forward, I ask the board to ensure that the process is iterative. You will hear resistance from parents, teachers, staff, and students. So perhaps opening up meetings will enable people to understand decisions that are being made. Allow 15 minutes of questions at the end. Just invite us into the process somehow. Also important, really important, is to educate each of these groups on the reasons why we are here. I know we've been talking about it for so long, and I know that we all kind of feel like we know it, but I think that there's so much about the science that our students don't know, and I don't want to see them just a survey being sent out and then pushback on, I don't want to get out of school later sort of thing. Start times aren't a luxury. It's about health, well-being, safety. We aren't advocating for healthy start times because the 7:30 start time is inconvenient or a drag. We're advocating for healthy start times because our children's current and long-term health depends on it. I'd love to know how we're going to keep the community updated as we move through this process. I just want to remind you that Radnor voted in April, and they were able to kind of work through that iterative process and implement in August. And so I think I'm just grateful for the amount of time that you've kind of given us to kind of work through this. So I just want to thank you for continuing to move forward, especially given this time of transition in our district. We have a wealth of parent knowledge and support and experience in this district, and I hope that you can leverage that going forward. Thank you all, like from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Krosnitz.
Esther Kim, Renita Thomas, Ben Driscoll.
Hi, Esther Kim. I live in Penn Valley. My son's 11th grader at Harriton. Just some general comments. I think I speak for a lot of parents when I say I have to shake my son out of his deepest sleep at 6 a.m. every school day, the entire school year, so that some of the jocks can get out of school earlier to have some extra time on Arnold Field for just 6 weeks in the fall. Frankly, this is cruel and abusive to my son and all the other kids. Countless parents have reported this is chronic sleep deprivation, and countless parents have reported this is cruel. Stop the cruelty now. There are many issues. Sleep time must take priority over a lot of these other issues now. For years, physicians, parents, scientists, and kids, both local and national, have reported that sleep deprivation is harmful to the physical and mental health of all kids. Chronic sleep deprivation harms all the teens every school day, every school year, all 4 years of high school in Lower Merion School District. So, like a lot of parents, we're asking, stop the sleep deprivation now. Stop harming the kids now. Make this an urgent priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kim.
Hi, my name is Renita Thomas. I live in Wynwood. First, I want to say that I have 4 kids, 3 of whom are in the Lower Merion Public School District, and 1 who's in private school. So, as you all know, the one in private schools, they figured it out, and she gets to sleep till a very reasonable hour and get to school at a reasonable hour. But what I want to say is I have I have 2 children at Lower Merion, 1 who's graduating and 1 who's a 9th grader. And while I am very happy to hear that we're going to push start times back for the high school students, I have very, very strong concerns about my 1 middle school student. As a person who lives in Wynwood, who has a child who goes to Black Rock, my 11-year-old son gets picked up at 7:20 and is on the bus for 40 minutes in the morning and gets to Black Rock at 8 o'clock. So my middle schooler is getting up before the same time that everybody else is and leaving earlier than his high school sister who goes to private school. And my concern really is that not only does he spend 40 minutes on the bus, and not only does he get off at 6:45, but with this new plan, he's going to get up even earlier because we're putting middle school even earlier. And I'm really concerned about I'm very happy that we're doing this for the high school students, and I think that's wonderful, and I fully support that. But I'm worried that we're actually taking away sleep from the middle school students. And I know that there's no perfect solution, and I know that we have this tiered bus system. So there's really, your hands in some ways are tied. But I really think, like people mentioned before, I remember all the pushback that you guys got from the elementary school parents. But I really think if there's any way to revisit it, I really think that we have to really think very carefully and consider the middle school students, because there's not that much of an age difference between old middle school students and young high school students, and we're talking about the need for adolescents to get sleep, and those middle school students are adolescents. So I'm in favor of this plan because I really do. I'd rather the high school students get more sleep, but I really, really worry about our middle school students. And I see my own child having trouble getting up every morning, And to look at his face and tell him he's going to have to get up even earlier next year really worries me. So I thank you for all the work that you're doing. I know that we're all on the same team here. I just really wanted to tell you, as a person whose child has already a really, really hard time and a long commute to school, that, you know, there's a lot of consideration that we need to take into consideration. That doesn't make sense, but it's late. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Ben Driscoll, Holly Manzoni, Lisa Kolish, and Abby Rubin.
Good evening. I'm Ben Driscoll. I'm from Wynwood. I have one issue, but first, I do wish you a lot of luck on full-day kindergarten, and I wish you a lot of luck on start time. They are important issues, but I also recognize if they were as easy as turning on a light switch, it all would have been done before any of you were sitting up there. So it's difficult, but I wish you luck. Also, hopefully this will make you laugh, because last Wednesday, I attended a Board of Commissioners meeting, and now here I am, another 3 hours in a meeting, because I think it's important. I think just showing up on your one issue and not understanding the whole doesn't really make much sense. So my singular issue is this which has nothing to do with anything else, is this $500,000 payment that the Lower Merion Commissioners will be seeking from you later this year, 2023, possibly 2024. This payment is based on the improper condition of approval forced upon the school board by the Board of Commissioners as part of the Black Rock Middle School project. At that meeting, Mr. Courtney, Ward 5 Commissioner, stated, quote, "No member of the school board, you, has asked for the money back or brought it to us, to the township, as a potential problem. If there were, that is a conversation I would want to have," unquote. Piggyback into that, this board has an obligation to make payments on valid contracts. You do it all the time, as you did with your list of bills tonight, or you will do when you approve it. But just as important as that obligation is your obligation to not use taxpayer money to pay unenforceable contracts. Since this $500,000 condition of approval violates Pennsylvania Municipalities Code, it is an invalid agreement and you therefore unenforceable. You cannot make that payment. So, Ms. Klein, I apologize for everything you have on your plate. I am asking you to call Mr. Courtney and have this conversation he claims has never happened. Please let him know it's a payment you cannot make for legal reasons. My last point on this is this payment is in itself invalid. So please do not trade it for something else, some other concession somewhere else. It is a nullity that stands on its own, and it should be disposed of on its own. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll.
Hello, and thank you for listening to us. My name is Lisa Kolish-Gottesman. I have a son who's now in college, who went to Lower Merion High School and everything before that, and I have a son who's a junior at Lower Merion High School. I'm here to talk about healthy start times, an issue we've been working on since my older child, who's now in college, was in elementary school. It's been a very long time. It's been difficult and disheartening, and I am grateful that we seem to be moving forward in a positive direction, and I'm glad it's finally coming to a vote. I always want to say that you, the school board, showed everyone how capable you are when students' health is at stake during COVID, when from literally one day to the next, everything changed. Like you made it work. You did it. You are capable of making changes and making them quickly when our students' health is at stake. And I ask you to take the same approach with sleep, which we know is critical. This is a mental health crisis that our young people have been in for a long time. And although there are many components of wellness, the most basic and obvious one is sleep. Without an appropriate amount of sleep, nobody can be well, physically or mentally. I want to say that the issue around babysitting, all the parents that I've spoken to who need babysitting help for their elementary school students say it would be better to just have a have help in the afternoon rather than break it up in the morning and the afternoon, and they would rather drop their elementary school kid off at 8 so they can get to work at 8:30 or 9, and then just have one child care issue a day instead of 2. I want to echo something that a few people have said, that I hope this is an iterative process. So I'm for starting with elementary school kids. They're awake, they're energetic, they're ready. But I want to see this move forward. And it's something is better than nothing. Let's start it, and then let's make improvements along the way as we learn, as Radnor has done, and as all the schools. And the RASNC, the Regional the Sleep Committee that's been meeting for years, is a great way to start. They have all the information you're looking for. They've been studying this for 20 years. So mind them. They meet once a month on Mondays. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Holly Manzoni, Abby Rubin, Jan Turish, and then Ruth Jenkin.
Good evening, I'm Holly Manzoni, I live in Wynwood. A couple things. Carrie, the Unionville Chad Ford School District did do healthy start time, or earlier start time, later start time. It's late, a couple years ago. But I do want to point out that their high school and middle school are adjacent to each other, and they share a bus, so that wouldn't really help us much. I'd also like to say to Ms. Schaefer, you've done a great job tonight. I really appreciate your stepping in and doing this. I thought you did a wonderful presentation. I particularly liked the start with why. That's something that I like to do. And I think when you consider this whole Oakwell situation, that's really a start with why thing as well. And listening to some of the earlier speakers, why would we be doing this? We really don't need these fields. We can't afford them. You guys obviously have a lot of bigger, weighty issues to address. And then finally, here it is, actually it's almost, well, no, here it is, School Director Recognition Month. And I do want to say thank you to all of you. I know I'm not always the kindest person when I'm standing here, but I do appreciate all the work you're doing. But I think maybe for all of you, and maybe Ms. Schaefer, you could make your jobs a little bit easier if you take this Oakwell thing off the table. You've got other things to be working on. You could save a whole lot of money. You could save a whole lot of legal expense, and maybe then focus on the things that really impact the children's lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manzoni.
Abby Rubin. Jan. Did I say that right?
No, sadly, it happens all the time. Proper pronunciation is Jan. I heard Grandfoot was chuckling. It happens every day. I just wanted to assure the entire school board that the middle schoolers will be fine. I'm going to talk about the auxiliary fields, just to be clear. I'm one of 3 boys. I'm from Wynwood, and we all did sports in high school. We did sports in college, and even ended up at the national and, in some cases, my older brother at the international level. Something to be proud of, and it was only through the coaching of Lower Merion staff and the support that they provided. But at no point in those sporting career did the coach ask, what was your middle school, track experience or middle school rowing experience? Middle school, these kids should be learning, right? Lower Merion School District, the policy, the motto is, enter to learn, go forth to serve. And this is one of these assets. It is one of the most beautiful places, the charming, it's the place that, makes life worth living, right? You can't just live off, bread alone. You need the kind of bread evangelists, something beauty, something that ennobles these children. And Oakwell is one of those sites. A lot of people talk about, natural aspect, environmental aspect, but it's also that beautiful aspect. And I think we're also really blessed to have people like Natural Lands, people like Villanova, who are willing to put up money, put up time, put up resources to create an educational facility there, for horticulture, for botany, to really staff, one of these more pressing needs. I think more kids in Lower Merion would benefit, especially entering college from, a background in horticulture and botany and the plant sciences, as opposed to the, the 25 students for the, the softball fields. I think they'll be fine. I think there's other places. I think there's parts of the township that are not so pretty, but could be spruced up into playing fields. Let's kind of turn parking lots into playing fields, not, forests into parking lots. This seems like something you'd see in, Vox movie about, how could this happen? Or why did we destroy Penn Station, right? Why did we destroy these beautiful places? This is one of these kind of moments where, we don't have to ask what were they thinking, because, the worst never happened. And in fact, we got something quite romantic. I think we got something truly kind of transcendent that I think many generations will have fond memories and come back to Lower Merion because of that. Something that's different. I think every township will have a softball pitch, but not every township will have a Frank Miles a day structure. The same thing that the Ivy Leagues have, right? This is what, the Palestra, right? Same architect who did the Penn Museum, right? The same architect who did the field house, right? At the Penn Relays, right? To have that same heritage within our own district is a treasure, and I think we should treasure that thing, not bulldoze it. It seems like a waste. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And Ruth Jenkins.
Brought my buddy. Ruth Jenkins, I'm from Wynwood. Mostly, I just want to say that I think you're working much too hard. It's an overwhelming job that you have. And when you were doing the sleep study, you hired people who were specialists in sleep. I think you need to hire a kindergarten specialist to look over this situation. I had presented to the board a building right on Haverford Avenue next to the Penn School that's empty, and it was used as a kindergarten. It has many classrooms and can be used. So I think that you don't have to work as hard as you are. You can get some people who are specialists in kindergarten development to come in and do it. Dr. Pohl is a wonderful presenter, but she's not the researcher. She just puts the information together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
And that is all we have for the in-person.
Ms. Brooks, can you please read any public comments that were submitted via the chat feature?
Thank you. Hi, it's Ashley Goodman, Marion Station resident. I have advocated for healthy school start times since I first heard about the initiative when my daughter was a kindergartner at Marion Elementary. She's now in 8th grade, and the idea of high school starting prior to 8 a.m. is mind-boggling. We know science backs adolescents getting more sleep, and considering the mental health issues exacerbated as a result of the pandemic, the time to act is now. Change is not easy, but if we figured out how to run school virtually during the pandemic and are considering full-day kindergarten, we can find solutions as a community and follow the lead of other districts and make it happen. It will benefit all of the thousands of kids a year going through our high schools, the 4 most important years of their learning. I thank you for voting to move Healthy Start times forward towards implementation for the 2023-2024 school year. Allison Barron, Narberth. We came to Narberth in 2021 with Lmsb as a motivator to moving here. We were saddened to learn that kindergarten was only half day. We are thrilled to see the board and community is serious about making full-day kindergarten happen. As a working mom with 3 kids under the age of 4, implementing full-day kindergarten as soon as possible is critical for many of us with young children. We know there are challenges like space, but are confident that the board can and will find solutions. It has been said before, the fact that the majority of districts in this state have full-day K is proof that this is an achievable goal. Thank you again, and we're hopeful that we will send our children to full-day kindergarten in the near future. Danielle Joyce Villanova, and full-day kindergarten committee member. First, I'd like to thank Dr. McGloin and Dr. Gaudioso for their leadership with the exploration of full-day kindergarten. They have worked tirelessly to guide this initiative. As a community member and mother, I hope the board considers an early expansion of existing full-day kindergarten programs in the 2023-2024 school year with full implementation in 2024-2025. While we realize there are competing budget constraints, this is an area where we can immediately change the educational trajectory of our students. Please do not delay this extremely important initiative any longer. I also echo Shayna and Sean's comments on healthy start times. The proposed plan puts an extreme burden on families of elementary-age children to obtain childcare in 2 separate tranches and not providing appropriate start times for our middle schoolers. David Connor Ardmore. I would like to voice my support for full-day kindergarten and urge the board to vote in favor of the universal full-day kindergarten proposal. Thank you. Greg Peppel, Narberth. As a father of 3 young children, I'm glad that the board is exploring the possibility of full-day kindergarten, catching up to how almost 90% of districts in Pennsylvania are already handling kindergarten. This district must fully commit to full-day kindergarten. After a prolonged discussion of the costs and constraints, let's not lose sight of the benefits. Full-day kindergarten is better for children, setting them up for success at a critical phase of development. It's also best for families with young children, families with single parents, families with 2 working parents, and for women trying to balance a career and motherhood. It's better for kids, and it's better for families. Make it happen. My name is Ben Mayer, speaking for myself. I live at Penwyn, Pennsylvania. I strongly support the new fields at Black Rock Middle School. I've had 4 kids in Lower Merion School District. The last one is a junior at Lower Merion High School now. He just got back from Science Olympiad, which went up to compete with other schools at MIT. What a fantastic opportunity you folks have helped create and fund. He's also on the Ultimate Frisbee team, so I know how critical the fields are. Their practices get moved around frequently and sometimes canceled because as a town, we don't have enough field space. The Penwyn Middle School kids have the longest middle school commute to Black Rock Middle School already. Remember, it is Penwyn that has made this sacrifice to enable Black Rock Middle School, and thus Lower Merion School District averted the projected enrollment crunch in middle school, and critically, by moving the 5th grade, enabled this popular full-day kindergarten. There would not be classroom space for full-day kindergarten without our kids having a long commute to Black Rock Middle School. Kay Sickles, Bala Kinwood. Please address the status of adding lights to the field. Our family is very enthusiastic about a healthy start time for high school. However, if we don't have lights, the fall season and the spring season will suffer greatly. Stacy Kinwood Elementary, parent of 3rd grader. 1st grader and hopefully a 2024 full-day kindergartner. I'm in support of full-day kindergarten and happy this can finally become a reality. Elementary school should begin first 9:20. It's too late of a start time for elementary school students. I'm in favor of Shayna Kalish's proposal of elementary, high school, and then middle school. This is a much better schedule for all age ranges and in the best interest of all children and students. There's a chat that asks to be able to speak, and just to let everyone know, you can't speak through the computer, so you have to come in person to speak. Stacy Greenberg, Bala Kinwood, Kinwood Elementary, parent of a 3rd grader, 1st grade. Just read that same thing, sorry, it's double. Christina Chang, Penn Valley. Thank you for targeting September 2023 for healthy start time changes. I support elementary school, high school, middle school ordering. Joy Smith, Gladwin. Please approve the recommendation for full-day kindergarten. Adrian Seltzer, Wynwood. Full-day kindergarten will end the need for midday bus runs. Not destroying Oakwell will save you enough money to not worry about the budget for full-day kindergarten. Have you done a survey on how many students at Black Rock Middle School will use the proposed fields? Thank you for the presentation on full-day kindergarten and healthy start time, and hopefully the vote in favor of their implementation. Miriam Posner-Vinci, Bala Kinwood. First, I'd like to urge the board to move forward with the full-day kindergarten proposal. I'd like to commend the full-day kindergarten committee for coming forward with a thoughtful proposal quickly and being flexible and pushing up the timing to bring this to the board to keep the community informed of the proposal, given the implications the timing has with school registrations for next year. I was wondering if the committee had considered a phased rollout of full-day kindergarten so that the schools that do have space can implement the program immediately in fall of 2023, and any lessons learned can be used for the full rollout in 2024. In addition, if there is further opportunity for the committee to help ensure that the full rollout of full-day kindergarten in 2024 becomes a reality, I would hope that you will continue to engage us and form committees as needed. We want to help. Thank you. Jamie Mogul, Haverford. Thank you to the board for their work and support on healthy school start times and full-day kindergarten. As an alumna, community member, and president of the League of Women Voters, I support these initiatives as well as the youth civic engagement policy, and I'm proud to see these amazing young adults speaking. I hope you continue to empower them as civic participants in their community. Last, please listen to the students and community to reconsider the costs versus benefits of the Oakwell property destruction. It is not too late to stop the overwhelming financial bleeding, $13 million for the property alone, and the wasted legal costs on both sides that do not outweigh the ecological damage for auxiliary fields, especially when there are better uses that benefit the community and students. Go Birds. Janice Lipsitz, Marion Station. Please ensure that the Healthy Start Time efforts educate the students before they are surveyed and that the community engagement process is iterative. Also, thank you very much for all the hard work occurring towards both issues presented tonight. There was a significant shift in acknowledgement of the need for and value of more qualitative engagement, dialogue with the community. Board member recognition of special contributors was refreshing and necessary to building relationships. Finally, please do bring student voice in via dialogue, as those passionate students requested and deserve. We need their brilliance. Colleen Campbell, Bala-Cynwyd, thank you for the update on full day K. As a parent of a rising kindergartner, this information will allow us to plan how our child will participate in school. I appreciate the challenges associated with expanding the program. Please continue to explore how K+ and hopefully something beyond that can be offered in 2023-2024. Our children deserve the benefits academically and socially of full day K. We need to prioritize that even if it is a soft launch that permits expansion initially in our only limited schools. We seek ongoing clear communication. The Healthy Start Times proposal is especially problematic for elementary school families. This late start time creates an access and equity issue. Daycare for children in the school district is hard to find for those over 5 years, especially due to pandemic-related reductions. Working families need access to public education and to childcare. We need more right at school slots and KRAP. Thank you. Good evening, Alice Lou Brown from Penn Valley. I attend RASNC meetings with Lucy monthly, Regional Adolescent Sleep Needs Coalition. Several school districts are represented at this meeting. One of the most important things to do on this journey is you must educate. Educate the administration, teachers, staff, students in the community. Please educate first before you do any kind of survey. Thank you. Andrea Spence, Eisenberg, Wynwood. As a parent of a third grader and a pre-K student, I am delighted that the school board is considering changing the start times for next fall. I've been very concerned my kids would still experience the hardships current high school students face with an early start time. I hope the board will agree to move forward with a change in start times. That is the end.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. And thank you all, everyone on the chat and also in person for coming tonight and sharing your thoughts and comments. So at this point, we're going to move forward with the agenda. The recommended actions for items 7B and 7C, which are going to be voted outside of the consent agenda. Item 7B is the one we were talking about on the healthy sleep times. And as we discussed, I think that we want to amend that recommendation to include a targeted date of September 2023. And I'm recommending that after the bulleted points, when the sentence where it says, additionally, the administration will continue to determine the operational costs and potential mitigation measures associated with implementing this schedule, comma, targeting September 2023, so that we add that in. I just want to confirm that by saying that, I can then move forward.
You just need a second on your amendment.
I second it.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
We're approving the addition or we're approving the motion?
The addition.
The addition, okay. Aye.
Okay, now you're going to vote on the motion.
So do I have a motion to approve the amended resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just noting that Peter is on the phone.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Next is item 7C, the other presentation this evening. The Board of School Directors authorizes the district's administration to move forward with planning for 2024-2025 implementation of universal full-day kindergarten. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Before we move on to approving tonight's agenda via consent, is there anything anyone else would like to remove from the consent agenda this evening? Okay. So, do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda via consent? What? I'm sorry, what did you say? Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda via consent?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. So now, do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
A second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Ms. Brooks, can you please give a report on the Sunshine Act? As everyone is packing up.
In accordance with Act 93 of 1998, the Sunshine Law, the Board of School Directors met in an information session, executive session on January 9th, 16th, and 23rd. On January, also to discuss personnel items. On January 16th, they also discussed possible real estate lease.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brooks. Upcoming meetings, February 13th is the Education Committee and Supplementary Regular Board Meeting, 8 p.m. here in the District Boardroom. On Tuesday, February 21st, which is a Tuesday, not a Monday, because of the President's Day weekend holiday, is our next regular business board meeting. Both of those here, 8 p.m., live streamed on Zoom, recorded. Upcoming committee meetings, which will be held in the boardroom, live streamed and recorded, starting at 8:30 a.m. unless noted otherwise. January 25th, this Wednesday, is the Communications Committee at 7 p.m. via Zoom. February 1st, Wednesday, is a Curriculum Committee meeting at 8:30 a.m. February 3rd, Policy Committee at 8:30 a.m. Thursday, February 16th is the next Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting, and February 22nd, which is a Wednesday, the Equity and Anti-Racism meeting at 7 p.m. via Zoom. One note, we have an upcoming coffee and conversation this Sunday at 1, it was originally scheduled for 2 p.m., but thanks to the Eagles, we are changing that, and we are making it at 1 p.m. With a hard stop at 3 p.m. because the place we're having it is going to kick us up to go watch the game. So 1 to 3 p.m. on Sunday. February 1st is the first of a Committee for Special Education Transition series every Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m., starting with the End in Mind, which is weekly for 4 weeks. And on February 14th is ISC Hot Topic around social and emotional learning. There being no further business, thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.